of what isn't necessary. All just temporary. Don't fight. None of it's in our hands. Blue skies coming next. So slow. The days don't pass us by. I go crazy staying here once again, my friend. But I don't even know where we are. And I don't even know where we are going. It seems like it's never too far. But if you wanna go, then just take me where you are. Take me where you are. Try to stay entertained, watch a movie, read another book. I even took the time to make a puzzle with you. I'm running out of ideas of the things we can do to get through. But I don't even know where we are, and I don't even know where we are going. It seems like it's never too far. But if you wanna go, then just take me where you are. Just take me where you are. Just take me where you are. But if you wanna go, then just take me where you are. Take me where you are. But I don't even know where we are, and I don't even know where we are going. It seems like it's never too far. But if you wanna go, then just take me where you are.
I wanna be there for you, but I gotta be there for me. How can I give you all my love when I don't even know how to love me?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome to Cocktails with Chello, episode 36. Sorry for the long intro. Yeah, for whatever reason, those crazy technical difficulties. I had them to plug in one of these old school mouses. For whatever reason, it wasn't my Mac. This guy right here, this beautiful fancy mouse thing, it wasn't working out. So I was like, you know what? You know what? Now it's working. Is always the case. So thank you very much for joining me for Cocktails with Chello, episode 36. Before we get started, we always like to talk about the details, in which all opinions are solely my own and do not reflect the opinions and views of my employer. Reason why I bring that up is because I work for the second largest recycling and waste company in the nation. And we haven't met before. Hey, my name is Marcello Arcele. Nice to meet you. I provide recycling and waste services for companies right here in Metro Atlanta. I specialize in working with companies like manufacturing, industrial, and logistical companies. So if that sounds like you, or if you know someone that I could help, please let them know to reach out to me. My number is 678-683-9136. So thank you very much for that. I want to welcome everyone to Cocktails with Chello. So thank you very much for joining me. Let me know what part of the world you're watching me from. If you're watching me live, let me know. If you're team live, if you're watching me in the replay, please feel free to let me know team replay. Either way, I love the team that you play on, because we're definitely going to answer your questions, even if you're on the replay. So be sure if you are watching this on a replay, but at Marcello, at whomever that you're talking to, so we could actually reply to your questions even after the live show. Also, like I mentioned, what part of the world are you located from? If you're in Atlanta, Georgia, New York City, and say it with me, if you're Cocktails with Chello alumni, Bangladesh. That's my favorite town. You already know that. So be sure to join me in the comments so we can engage dialogue back and forth. And also, we're going to be answering your questions throughout the show. And don't be shy and don't keep it all to yourself. Be sure to share this with your network. If you hear something you like, click on that button, show some expressions, let them know how you feel. Now, we're going to have a great discussion today. The discussion obviously is about how to utilize LinkedIn to fill your pipeline. Now, interesting enough, a good friend of mine, Will Barron, he said, you know what, dude, I'm going to allow you to utilize my podcast. And he even provided me the actual file to stream it. So that's a good thing. Now, I'm going to be utilizing that. We're going to have a debate around that. Now, leading up to that, I met a good friend of mine, Adrian. He's in the UK. This guy's staying up late to hang out with us. So we're going to give him a good warm welcome. And thank you very much for hanging out with us, even at this late hour. And I got my dude from the Caribbean. He's in the green room right now. He's like maybe in the blue room right now. He's trying to get himself ready. So I'll let him know. I'll wait for him to get in the green room, because right now, like if I bring him on, he's gonna be like this on the screen. So you guys don't want that right now. So let me bring my dude Adrian. He's ready to play. What's going on, Adrian? How are you?
Hey, my friend. I'm very good. How about yourself?
You're pretty good. Look at this guy. This guy. Look at that voice. That's all you got to say. Hey, how you doing? Oh, where should I sign? How are we doing, sir? Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. It's really fun.
Yeah,
and connect.
The neat thing is that how we met in Clubhouse, and that's what we're going to be going back into today as well. So now, do me a huge favor, and this I'm not sure if you knew this, but I'll let folks know that are watching this for the first time. Cocktails with Chello started out, and it still is, a networking type show. So this show started way before the pandemic, and what I was doing is that, which I'm still doing, which you're going to see now, is I like to share my platform with other people to give them the opportunity to share and, talk to people that they normally wouldn't via LinkedIn and other social media platforms. So then we could work together. So given that said, Adrian, can you do me a favor? Let folks know about yourself. What are the things that you're passionate about, and why should folks connect with you here on LinkedIn?
Okay. Hi. My name is Adrian Betton. I'm based here in London. I am a procurement director. I specialize in purchasing, buying, contracting all across the public sector, all across the private sector. And what I love doing is my real passion is about trying to make the supply chain more diverse, more inclusive, more sustainable. My passion is I want you to be involved in the supply chain. I've been working across so many industries for the last 20 years. I've been awarding billions of pounds worth of contracts. And it's interesting that I see a predominant demographic that is featured in the boardrooms, or the people that actually win these contracts. And so I can count on hands in 20 years how many times I've seen a woman-led business even come into the boardroom, let alone win. And the same thing applies to anything that is diverse-led business. So from any of the diversity you want to try, any race, any gender, or anything like that. And so my passion is trying to equalize that.
That's awesome. And now, before I want to piggyback on what you just said. What are the challenges that you have found, or let's try to keep it simple. What are the typical challenges that you have found that when you see it coming around the corner, you be like, okay, I know that's about to happen. Let me advise this person. Let me advise this company. So can you share that with folks, that might be watching this and like, okay, he's in the same industry as I am. I'm just curious to know what is his insight. So let's think about that. What are the challenges or the most typical thing that you might come across that you consult with?
Okay, so I consult with businesses that really want to win contracts. really want to get actual opportunities, not fake things, or just hear about it from hearsay. I'm just trying to think. What would I say? I think the best thing I would say is that timing is one of the most important things that people need to understand. You might have a product, you might have a service that you want to get into an organization. And when you do that, the timing of when you land that is so important. And what you find is you get people that are salespeople that come in all the time, talking to the wrong people, trying to fit in their product or their service into the organization when it's not ready for it, or it's not the right time or person.
Okay. I guess it sounds like
and also people don't understand how it works.
Yeah, I mean, if anything, I guess if you're a pro, then I guess you already know all those answers or how to approach it. I guess in this case, once you notice that these individuals are novice, or, lack of a better phrase, wet behind the ears, you're like, okay, let me put my arm around your proverbial shoulder and let me guide you, or better yet, let me hold your hand through this process. So that's essentially what you specialize with.
Absolutely.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much for that. Now, I also got my dude, Antonio Prescott from the Caribbean. What's going on, sir? How are we doing today?
I'm all right.
Yeah, man, thank you very much for joining me, man. Listen, when I spoke to my dude, Antonio, earlier, we were talking about a specific post that he was working on, and he had some good, some traction, and we was, chopping it up, so to speak. And I let him know, hey, I'm doing, cocktails, and we've talked about working, collaborating in the past. Timing didn't work out, so I say, hey, you know what? We've been talking about it. Let's be about it. So I say, hey, I'm going live tonight. What's going on? You want to do it? And unfortunately, I gave him, the wrong time, or I gave him a time that, I guess I misled him. Let's say that much. So I know he's pushing it right now. So I want to thank you very much for hanging in with us a little bit later than you originally thought of. Now, Antonio, now let me ask you this. I know folks know you quite a bit here on LinkedIn, but at the same time, some of the folks in my network may not know you. So this is an opportunity for you to let folks know what you do here on LinkedIn, what's your passion, and ultimately, why should folks connect with you here on LinkedIn, please?
Okay, so I'm this is my passion. Since I know myself growing up, I was in the sales arena, and sales. A guy came to me one and told me, hey, I have a business.
Hey, Antonio, do you have this the audio playing somewhere else? Because there's a bit of a feedback on my end. Do you see it on your end? Did you hear it, Adrian? Okay, I just want to make sure it wasn't just me. Okay. All right, go right ahead. I just want to let you know if you had anything you could adjust on your end. Go right ahead.
You hear me now?
No, we was hearing you earlier, but we were hearing a lot of you. That's what it was.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. All right. Yeah, so sales, since I know myself, I was in sales. How I got in sales is that growing up, a guy approached me. He was like, Antonio, this is the vehicle to sell at a very reasonable price. So when I purchased this vehicle now, I ended up doing some mechanical work. And when I was able to sell this vehicle, I was able to make, let's say, $1,000 US in profit. And after that, I was like, hey, what? Sales is my passion because I am a person who likes to make money. So that's how I entered this arena, and sales is my passion, and I would not go into any other field. And why people should connect to me is because I'm not out there to tell you. I'm a person that looking for, engagement and looking to better myself and my content that I provide. I looking to educate the audience and educate anyone who looking to startups, entrepreneurs, anyone who wants to understand this sales process how it actually goes. So sales to me is a matchmaker where you understanding the prospect, and giving the prospect the necessary ideal solutions the better discussion in terms of your skills to make it scalable.
Okay, I like that. I mean, that's right up my alley. So I appreciate that. Yeah, you walk. Thank you very much. Yeah, the audience said that they did hear echo, but I think it has a lot. Thank you, Martin, for mentioning that. But I think really what happens is that I think Antonio, you're using maybe the headphones is picking up the sounds. That's the reason why. So that's a mute point at this point. But thank you very much for sharing that. Now, before we go into the actual go into the room. Okay, Carmen, you said the sound's really bad. Is that was it Antonio only? That was it, or I know we had some issues earlier on the previous show. But thank you very much for sharing that, Carmen. Now, let me ask you this: now, are anyone? I know Antonio, you have an Android, and Adrian, he's on. We met in Clubhouse. So I guess I have to ask Adrian because he has a little bit of some knowledge. Curious to know, how are you using Clubhouse for your line of business? I know that you and I met in a sales room, but outside of that, I'm just curious to know if you could share some insights to people that are watching this now. I'm like, Clubhouse, I heard about it. I heard there's a time suck. Yeah, but go ahead, share your point of view.
So my point of view, I think House is an amazing platform. You can get into rooms and learn people just like how we have it now. But people all across different lots of different rooms that are available. I use it to learn, to connect with people, to share the vision and any of the service that we're going to add for people's lives. And people are doing the same thing, adding so much value to my business. How I plan, what I do. You could have marketing help, sales help, buying help, design help. It's all there. And if you don't need that, you just connect with similar backgrounds, similar patterns you do.
All righty. We're going 0 for 2 right now. Yeah, on your end was jumping on your end. Mind you, it's nothing wrong that you're doing. It's just that historically Bluetooth or wireless headsets are they don't do as well. So I mean, usually having something corded works, but that's like I said earlier, it's a mute point. Yeah, I mean, so now what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna let me go into the room in the meantime, and then I'm gonna see if we have any folks in there. Let me launch it. Give me 1 second. And now, folks, let me see here. Bring that up. Quick time. And it's the magic on this end. We have to let me get this here. We got to run a cord to the little device and get it going. Because what I'm doing is I'm actually using my iPhone to mirror. There we go. Okay, let me bring it up here, share it. Oh, my dude, Kenny. From all the way from Sugarland, Texas is in the house. What's going on, Kenny? I mean, I tell you, if you guys are not connected with Kenny, I don't know, you guys are missing out. This guy has the best response on LinkedIn, and I had the great fortune to actually have a long, detailed conversation with him one time when I was in Texas with my family. And man, he was able to mentor one of my nephews, and he gave him some great, great insight. So thank you very much for stopping in, Kenny, my dude, all the way from Sugarland, Texas. Let me launch the app. Here, got it going. All right, so here we go. So now we got the room going. In the meantime, I'll have that there. Let me launch it here so actually people can listen to me. Let me get it going. And this is the magic of technology, so just bear with me. There we go. What was that?
What we call.
Were you saying something, Adrian?
Then we've got an echo. We've got an echo from this.
Okay. No, okay. Yes. We just let me just lower it. Okay. Okay. Mute it. Okay, that's what I needed to do because I have for a reason I'm be going bananas. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the podcast that I mentioned I was going to be having us discuss so we could actually debate on that. So give me one moment and bring that guy up right now. In the meantime, I'll bring up here. Here we go.
Up on today's episode of the Salesman Podcast.
You ideally want people coming to you. It's so much easier to sell to someone that's already done their homework, looked at your profile.
Now, can you guys hear that? What I just played?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good.
Absolutely.
All right, perfect.
Etc. And actually the content that you're putting out there is also helping them to build that know, like and trust. You know, it might be that you connect with someone today who isn't ready to buy from you, but social selling really is about staying top of mind. There's 4 different areas that LinkedIn looks at. So you get basically 25 points for each section. The first section is called establish your professional brand. So that's all to do with your profile and its effectiveness and the amount of content and the quality of content and consistency of content that you're putting out there. So yes,
all right, so I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but with Cocktails of Chello, we like to actually have some cocktails. So let me bring this up here and I'll show you. I didn't get a chance to show it. So my wife, look at this here. For my birthday, look what she did. Cocktails with Chello.
Look at that.
I mean, that's nice. So she's supporting the mission. So definitely appreciate that. Yeah, so I'm drinking. This is a Bai. I'm drinking a little bit healthy right now. So I'm drinking a Bai, which is some jacked up water. And that's pretty good. I was curious to know what you guys drinking, if you're drinking anything on your end, if any beer or any libations. I hear somebody's pouring something. Okay, I'm gonna go to Adrian. What you drinking?
I'm drinking. I've got two drinks. I've got pure water. I've also copper bread. So I'm out of flour.
Okay, good. Sorry about that. We're just breaking up on my end. So go right ahead, Antonio. What are you drinking? Anything on your end? Okay. It's a Caribbean ice cold water. That's not. You can never go wrong with that. I appreciate that. Let me bring back the show.
it's not like a direct thing, but you'll certainly, like, LinkedIn favors people that are very active and have a high social selling score. And there's now even recent research that came out in December. 4,500 posts were looked at and compared to SSI scores, and there was 125% more visibility on content for people that were having a very high SSI score. So SSI score does directly impact many of the things that LinkedIn wants you to do. So use that as your benchmark.
Hello, Sales Nation. My name is Will Barron, and I'm the host of the Salesman Podcast, the world's most downloaded B2B sales show. In today's episode, we have Sam Rathling. She is a
what's going on, Martin?
and social selling expert. You can find her on LinkedIn, man. And
Pretty
over
good.
LinkedInbound.co.uk. And on today's episode, with Sam, we're getting into
this
how
episode
you
of the show is brought to you
sales
from
pipeline
Salesman.org,
with social selling,
HubSpot,
very specifically through
Coming
LinkedIn.
up
We get
on
very
today's episode of the Salesman
ton of
Podcast.
value within it. And so let's jump.
You ideally
right.
want people coming to you. It's so much easier
Sam,
to sell to
welcome
someone
to
that's
the
already
Salesman
done their
Podcast.
homework, looked at your profile,
so
etc.
much. Well, it's great to
And
be
actually,
here.
the content
great to
that
have
you're
you
putting
on.
out
Okay,
there is
so
also helping them
we're
to
gonna talk-
build that know, like, and trust.
Can you guys hear
You know,
that?
it might be that you connect with someone today who isn't ready to buy from you. But social selling really is about staying top of mind. There's 4 different areas
Can
that
you hear
LinkedIn looks at. So you get basically 25
Okay,
points
perfect.
for each section. The first section is called establish your professional brand. So that's all to do with your profile and its effectiveness and the amount of content and the quality of content. And
I just
consistency of
decided just to
content
do the
you're putting
video
out there.
that,
So yes, it's not like a direct thing, but you'll certainly, like, LinkedIn favors people that are very active and have a high social selling score. And there's now even recent research that came out in December. 4,500 posts were looked at and compared to SSI scores, and there was 125% more visibility on content for people that were having a very high SSI score. So SSI score does directly impact many of the things that LinkedIn wants you to do. So
Now I'm asking you guys here: do you guys do any of you guys know what an SSI score is?
I did research. and I went on and I saw my.
Okay, yeah, I don't have the paid version of LinkedIn, so I did the lookup on my SSI score. Mine was 68. So I definitely there's a lot of improvement there. So there's a link to I'll share the link that you can actually get to see your SSI score. Outside of Adrian, has anyone else checked their SSI score on LinkedIn? No? Okay, this is actually the stuff that Sam brings up during the show. It's mind-blowing. You guys are going to be just amazed how you could level up your presence on LinkedIn. So let me go back to the podcast.
Just that was your benchmark.
Hello, Sales Nation. My name is Will Barron, and I'm the host of the Salesman Podcast, the world's most downloaded B2B sales show. In today's episode, we have Sam Rathling. She is a LinkedIn and social selling expert. You can find her on LinkedIn, of course, and over at linkedinbound.co.uk. And on today's episode with Sam, we're getting into how you can build your sales pipeline with social selling, very specifically through LinkedIn. We get very tactical in this episode. There's a ton of value within it. And so let's jump right. Sam, welcome to the Salesman Podcast.
Thank you so much. Well, it's great to be here.
It's great to have you on. Okay, so we're going to talk today about how we can use social selling specifically to build our sales pipelines. I imagine there's quite a lot of the audience who need to rebuild or reconfigure their pipelines after the kind of last year, 12, 18 months that we've been through. So this will hopefully be massively valuable to them. But, and I'm on board with everything that you're going to say here. Clearly, I'm a fan of social selling. But with that said, why should we focus on social selling to rebuild a pipeline versus all of the more quote unquote traditional ways of doing things, which might be going through a list and cold calling or cold emailing all of these individuals to find potential customers?
Well, it's a great question. It's something I get asked a lot. So, social selling, especially in current times, is really about building your personal brand and making you that go-to person. So I think social selling can allow you to get into decision makers much easier. I mean, the traditional methods can work, and I don't disregard those whatsoever. In fact, I often recommend a combination of social selling and prospecting by phone as well. But obviously, it can be quite tricky at the moment to get hold of decision makers. So actually prospecting and outreaching to your target market and decision makers through something like LinkedIn, for example, can be a different way of approaching the traditional method. So, and done effectively and done the right way can be a very effective and very positive way of getting new business, for sure.
What do you guys think about social selling? That title, social selling. Mind you, I used it in my hashtag in this post because obviously that's going to be something that is going to be discussed. But just curious to know from top to bottom, Antonio going first. What's your thought on social selling? What's your philosophy on it? And are you pro or against it?
It's all about conversation. You know, selling and conversation. You know, people tend to be
yeah, Antonio is not going to work out. I'll tell you this much. The audio is pretty bad. I could not make out what you said. Let me try now to Adrian right now. Sorry about that. Yeah. Okay. Adrian, what's your thought on social selling? I'm gathering that you do it because you decided to log off right now, so that's fine. Martin, I'm curious to know you're un papi chulo, so people that know that if they understand what papi chulo is, that they're already in the house. But just curious to know, what's your thought on social selling? Are you what's your philosophy on the topic? And are you or are you against social selling? And I guess you could answer either you for it or against it first, and then let me know about your philosophy.
Right. I'm not against it. Actually, I think every sales channel should be used to maximize or actually increase the possibilities of the deal. But honestly, I have not used it aggressively enough to say that I'm a pro on it.
Let me ask you. So, when you have used social selling in the past, and your philosophy, your approach of it, what do you consider social selling to be?
What I consider is just practically contact people or prospects through your social media. Let's say LinkedIn. And then you qualify or identify possible customers, possible companies that can use your product or your service.
Mm-hmm.
And so far, for me, it hasn't produced the results that maybe I was expecting. But maybe I'm doing something wrong.
No, and that's fine. Mind you, you saying that means you have a growth mindset. So we're already going down the right path. So that speaks volume. That means that you're not saying, you know what, social selling is not for me. This is why. So that's good.
Yes.
That's a good approach. So I appreciate that. So let me go back to the podcast, and then when I get a chance, I see my dude Adrian's back. Let me see if I can get his input on that. So now, Adrian, social selling, what's your view on that? I mean, are you for it or against it? I have an idea how you feel, and then if so, what is your philosophy on that process?
Okay, so there's two ways.
Audio is wonderful. Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes.
I'm going to echo my end. Now, what I believe is depends on who you're talking. Depends on the audience. Direct people. Social selling is fantastic. If you're trying to do selling a corporate, different thing. Yeah. So what you want is you want currency for all the channels that you're using. If you're using Instagram, if you're using Facebook, if you're using LinkedIn, Clubhouse, or what, you need to have some currency with your that goes across all of the platforms, so that when they up, you're generally talking about the same thing or the same topic that find you. I think that
I'm sorry, Adrian. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, Adrian. If you do have some corded headphones, we might want to have to go to that. Yeah. So I'll back out in the meantime, and I'll bring you back in a moment. So so thank you very much for Sabra. Thank you very much for letting us know. I was trying to, try to get a gist of what Adrian was saying, but it was breaking up a little bit too much. So I apologize for the audience. I apologize. Thank you very much for that. Let me go back to bringing this guy here.
For sure. Do you, and I'm on board with this. We've done tons of content on personal branding. We've got tons of training ourselves over at salesman.org on it. Totally sold because I've lived it, right? I've gone from just some schmuck with a podcast with 10 downloads to a slightly better known schmuck with a podcast with slightly more downloads. And I see that it gets me indoors with conversations with huge sales enablement CRM brands. I've just had a call with a VP of marketing at a company that's doing like 700 million a year in revenue. It was just one email, one phone call, and we're doing business on the back of it. All because of just a personal brand. So I'm totally sold on this. But how much of a personal brand do we need to, I guess what I'm asking here.
So now I got to step in on that, right? I'm not sure if you guys caught that. So he said that he's working with a multi-million-dollar company based on an email. So now I haven't talked to Will. I'm connected with him on LinkedIn. We've talked casually. So I'm definitely going to follow up with him and ask him how did he manage to get that appointment. Now, I'll tell you my approach of social selling is essentially, say for instance, if I know that Martin is my main contact, what I might do, better yet, what I will do, is I'll reach out to some of his subordinates. Those people might be more inclined to accept my connection request faster. Or have you guys noticed sometimes when you submit a request to connect with, let's say, the Martins of the world, you click on his connection request and what it says? Do you have this person's email address? If so, pop it in. So now given that said, remember what I said earlier. If you connect with a lot of subordinates and you start talking to them, and it could be even probably their next in line, you befriend them, make some connections, and ask them, hey, Peter, this is what I do, and this is what I like to I like to achieve. Do you know who I can speak to? Hoping that they say Martin, but if he doesn't, or he doesn't, then you be like, if whomever they recommend, then guess what? Then you reach out to them, and then you start connecting. And once you find the email, sometimes the nomenclature is common across the individuals within a company. Now, the nomenclature, what that means is how the email is set up. So if certain companies have first initial dot last name, certain companies have first dot last name, you get the gist. So once I understand the nomenclature, chances are I could guess the email address. So that's how my approach of social selling. And then, it might take some effort, but that's one way that you could approach it. Let me go back to the show.
Is this a chicken and egg situation of, do we need a personal brand for social selling to work? And then how do we get a personal brand without spending a lot of time social selling?
Got it. So I think it's a combination. It's almost like a pieces of a puzzle. So the first element of the puzzle is you need to have a really effective LinkedIn profile, and ideally not look like a salesperson. The minute that you start looking or acting like a salesperson on LinkedIn, you can forget it. You're going to be deleted, ignored, and you're just going to look like everybody else out there. So I think really you need to first start by taking a decent look at your LinkedIn profile and almost look at it through the eyes of your ideal client. So look at your profile right now after the podcast and go look at it and think, if I was my ideal customer, like I was going to spend the biggest amount of money with you and give you the biggest amount of commission possible, would I do business with you today based on your current profile? So that's the first place to start. And I think far too many salespeople's profiles, it's really obvious that they're in sales. It's written like a CV, and it just doesn't really speak to the customer. So that's the first place to start.
All right, so let me go back to my main guy right here, and I'm not sure, nothing against Martin and nothing against Antonio, but everyone know who's my main guy. What's going on, Adrian? Welcome back with the cord. So let me ask you this now. So are you for or against social selling, and what's your philosophy on the topic?
I'm definitely for social selling. I think it's a brilliant way to build your brand, your message, your communication with your audience. But it depends on which audience that you're talking to, where your audience sits. So some of your audience might sit on LinkedIn. Some of them might sit on Instagram.
Yes!
Some of them might sit on Facebook. And then again, it depends on what your level is and where you're talking to. For me as a buyer, I absolutely do not go down anybody's LinkedIn profile and make sales from that. I don't go down people's click funnels and make sales for that or make purchases for that on behalf of my company. I don't really respond to unsolicited emails or anything like that. It's really important that we have a relationship first. They understand what I require, and then I invite them to submit something for me to evaluate and understand. So again, it really depends on the audience and who you're talking to.
Okay, all right, and Chi-Chi, thank you very much for that. Okay, and Allison said also there was a bit of echo, but what I just did, thank you very much, ladies. I just went into Adrian's settings and I took off something which is like echo canceling. So mind you, I want to make sure that everyone can hear you perfectly. So now, and mind you, the audio is better than was earlier. So thank you very much for taking the effort to find the corded headphone. Now, the reason why I scream yes, this is why. How often do you talk to either a colleague or even a friend for that matter? But in this case, let's talk about a colleague or someone in the same industry. And you might advise them. And let me bring in the rest of the panel. Now, you advise them, like, hey, what have you reached out to LinkedIn and have you see if they are there and thought about connecting with them there? And, potentially then if you connect with them, you might be able to get an idea of what they like, what they do. You might be able to get an idea of the persona. You know what I mean? Individuals are very easy to figure out. Chances are, if I'm a Yankee fan, they're going to have Yankee stuff there. If they're a family person, they'll put a picture of their family. If they're company focused, you get the idea. So it makes it easy. But how often have you guys, and we'll go from right to left, how often have you guys come across someone that says, yeah, I don't do LinkedIn. I don't do social media for business. And you look at them like, really, dude? You have to be where your clients are. So when you said that, Adrian, it resonated with me. So curious to know, Adrian, how often has that happened, and what's your approach on that, if there's any?
So it depends on who your client is. Yeah, I'm going to be quite honest. The people that I coach, the businesses that I coach, a lot of them are on LinkedIn. And I use that as verification of who they are and what they're into in a business way. If I was to look at them on Instagram, it's much more likely that they're going to have more personal stuff about themselves on their Instagram, and a little bit more if you look at them on Facebook or something like that. Yeah. So in different areas, you can build a picture of who that person is and what they like. Generally, though, LinkedIn is more a professional kind of outlook.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Let me see if let me see here. Okay. Alrighty. So now I think that whatever might have been the issue, I just addressed it. So we'll see. Thank you very much, Musafa. Thank you very much for sharing that. Now, I'm going to ask Adrian a follow-up question, and everyone that's watching, let me know if that addresses that echo. Thank you very much for that. Now, I ask you this, Adrian, when it pertains to that, when you do talk to folks and they say, yeah, I don't do LinkedIn because I don't like it. I don't think that's something professional, or not professional. That's not how I look for future clients or customers. What do you say? Do you try to convince them, or do you just say, okay?
It depends on who their customer is. I think that it's really important to understand who their customer is first. If their customer spends a lot of time on LinkedIn looking around and interacting, then they should be there. They're missing out on where their person are. But I don't think that every customer that you have is on LinkedIn. There's a number of people which are not on LinkedIn, and you won't sell to them on LinkedIn. You will sell to them on Instagram, and you will sell to them on TikTok or something else. You need to understand the audience. It's no one size fits all.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Hey, Tony, what are your thoughts on that when it pertains to, you talk to folks and you ask them, hey, this is where you need to go. You need to be where your clients are. And they say, nah, I don't really want to fool with it. Or better yet, even people that you're consulting. What's your thoughts on that?
You think I'm worth it, Marcelo?
Yeah, I hear you. Go right ahead.
Okay. All right. Folks don't understand the LinkedIn platform. I know many individuals who try to come on the LinkedIn platform, stay there a week, stay 2 weeks, and they don't understand how to navigate through the platform, and they themselves decide now to jump on LinkedIn platform, to go on Facebook or to go on Instagram. So it's all about educating individuals to know how to engage on this platform. LinkedIn is a platform that you have to be engaging into individuals. You can't just come on the platform and post content and expect that people engage in your content and like your content. You know what I see a lot of people doing wrong? They not engaging on other person's posts, but they expect you to like their post and comment on their post. You understand?
Yeah.
So for me, Facebook is basically like if it is you're selling an item, whether it be a phone, you're selling a vehicle or something like that. Yes. Facebook is not necessarily for like coaching individuals, because I saw, Marcelo, and this is so true, individuals one or two left LinkedIn platform and they are coaches to go on Facebook to do coaching, which to me is utter. Because there's a whole different demographic of population on the Facebook platform.
I agree with you. You know what? And quite often I'll have, and nothing against individuals that use Facebook like LinkedIn, right? But I use how often people say, yeah, I got a Facebook group. Yeah, I got a Facebook group for this. I got a Facebook group for that. It's okay. You know what I mean? I just don't see that, like you said, it's not the same individual. Meaning, like, okay, let me give you an example. When you're at Facebook, you might be more likely to have a Bermuda shirt or a T-shirt and some shorts. When you're on LinkedIn, you might have a polo shirt. You might have a dress down. You might have a button-down shirt, some slacks, and shoes. It's a different mindset also. So you're expecting something different. So, it's kind of, so that's my point of view. So now, what's your thought on that as well, Senor Martin? Do you, when someone you say, hey, you tell them, hey, you need to use LinkedIn, try to reach your clients. And I'll ask you a different question. The individual say, well, my customer is not there. Huh? Because I'm sure you might have come across that. What do you tell them, Martin?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. Go right ahead.
All right. Well, maybe the client is not there. I don't know. Now these days, most likely you will find it there. But something that I have to say is, and you mentioned a little bit of this earlier. Just talking about LinkedIn, I think that due to other reasons, there's my experience, LinkedIn, there's no trust yet. And to start or establish a business relationship. I think that is not there yet. From my experience. So like you said, sometimes you want to contact someone, but then it blocks you because you have to know it or be in their network. And then you cannot move forward to approach that person. So that's my experience and my approach. Answering your question.
I get you. I think that if you come into LinkedIn, you really have to look at it as a long play. Really, what it is. I mean, you plant in a seed, you water in it, and then you repeat. You plant the seed, you water it, and obviously not just that. You've tried to give it the correct lighting, all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean? So it's a process to that. So no, I appreciate that. Thank you very much for sharing that. Let me go back to the podcast.
The second place to then go next is to look at your outreach and the messages that you're sending, because if you're sending them like everybody else, they're going to be ignored, deleted. And if you're coming across as too salesy in your initial outreach and you're forgetting about the relationship building or doing your homework before you reach out to someone, you're not going to get through the door at all that way. And the third piece then is really down to content. So how you're positioning yourself. Are you really seen as an industry expert where somebody sees you as adding value to their network? Or are you, again, out there just, resharing whatever's coming up on the company page? Are you actually an original content creator on LinkedIn? So I think if you combine the profile, effective messaging and content, it isn't really just do one thing. It's about all of those different aspects coming together. And then the final thing layering over that is consistency. So you've got to be consistent. If you're going to be prospecting through LinkedIn and outreaching to decision makers, you've got to do a little bit every day. You need to be filling your pipeline all the time. So even if you just did 10 outreach messages a day as an absolute minimum as part of your daily habits, like that should be a core part of your social selling activity, and then regularly posting on the newsfeed, but in a really good way that actually drives inbound inquiries as well. What you really want is people coming to you and messaging you saying, I want to do business with you. I've been following you on the newsfeed. Let's talk, rather than you having to hunt and look for business all the time.
So I'm curious now, given what she just said,
depending on the amount of value.
Have you guys experienced that someone out the blue would just reach out to you, and they seem so familiar, and when I mean they their tone to you is very familiar, and mainly because they've been following you for weeks, months, years on social media. Obviously you're connected, but or maybe not, and they just know a lot about you, but all of a sudden they say, okay, let's do business or whatever it is. Has anyone experienced something like that?
I've definitely got cold calls of people that want to do business with me that have been going through my profile, things that I've done where I've worked, what I've achieved, so to speak. And I haven't really been sharing that much at all on LinkedIn. There's a couple of things that I've got on there, but I've definitely got business directly from that. And but again, it depends on the content that you put out. Is it searchable? Can they search and find you if that's what they're doing? And also your communication. What are you saying to your audience? So
that makes sense. And mind you, I think about going back to what Martin was saying. So going back to my approach about social selling, I'll create content that will resonate with that person. Agreed. So either two things. Either if I'm already connected with them, that's going to come up in their feed, and chances are they're going to see me in a different light. Mind you, you understand the algorithm. It's really a hit or miss chance that they're going to see it. But being consistent with it, it increases the probability that they will see it. So that's how that works. You know what I mean? And just have to,
it's all about the engagement.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all about the engagement that you're making, they're making on you. When you post something, especially on LinkedIn, the algorithm only lets about 10% of your audience see your post. If people interact a little bit more on that post, then more of your audience will get to see it. Which is why some people kind of tend towards Facebook or Instagram, because they've got a bigger reach due to the algorithm. But algorithms don't stay the same; they change. So you've got to use all platforms that you can.
Yeah. I agree. Allison, thank you very much for that. And folks that was listening to Adrian, let me know if you guys heard him clearly, because I heard him pretty good. I know that sometimes people's ears are a little bit, they hear things more than other folks. Now, Antonio, curious to know, based on what and Adrian and what I shared, what's your insight on that about posting content that is relative or it resonates with your prospects? What's your approach on that, and how do you coach your clients on that?
Well, first to begin, I realized that some individuals on LinkedIn, for example, I'm in sales, and when it is you're trying to post content to resonate with your audience, you have to be specific. Your headline is everything. In sales, you want to tell your ideal customer profile exactly what it is you are setting out to do in terms of your objective, your goal. So when it is someone engaging with you, the first thing is seen is your headline. So if I'm in sales, I cannot be talking about, let's say, HR, let's say I'm talking about, something else like marketing. You have to be specific in terms of what it is you want to portray out there.
Okay, no, I appreciate that, and Martin, the same question about posting content that resonates with your either prospect, existing customers, or either or. What's your thoughts on that?
Definitely, that is must on any social selling. Of course, being constant, like she mentioned on the earlier segment. You need to be constant and keep kind of positioning yourself out there regularly. And then people will contact you, or prospect contact you. Definitely that's a must. You want to get results.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. And now, I'm going to ask you a question before we go. I'm going to ask everyone a question, and then I have my answer, my approach, but I'm just curious to know what you guys go about this. So now my question is, you're coaching someone, right? Or better yet, you an individual like Martin, because I'm aware of. I don't believe that you coach or work with people like Adrian or Antonio does, but you're like you and I, because I don't coach anyone, but I really do it for myself. I'm a solopreneur on LinkedIn. I mean, really, I say that because that's why I always use this intro in the beginning of every show. Opinions expressed are solely my own. Even though I have a 9 to 5, everything I do on LinkedIn is my opinion. So that's why I say a solopreneur. Now, I'm curious to know from top to bottom, Adrian, then Martin, then Antonio. If and Martin, your question is gonna be different, but I'll ask the same question to Adrian and Antonio. When you're coaching somebody and the individual doesn't know the right headline, the message, that will resonate with them. And mind you, they're trying to get more of the existing clients they have now, or they know the client that they want because they have worked with them in the past. How would you recommend for them to approach that? And go ahead, Adrian, first.
So once you establish and you're quite clear into who your audience is, you need to be talking in their language as well as your language, but you need to be able to translate your message.
How can they identify that? That's my question.
Listening is the first thing. Look at your audience. Look at how they speak. Look at what they talk about. Look at the keywords that they're using. And then also, if you're coming from outside of that environment, you still need to translate your message in a way that they can understand. So it all comes down to listening, paying attention to who they are and what they like. You can look at their trade magazines. You can look at the businesses that they're in, their likes, their preferences, all of those. They will give you a kind of indication of the type of things that they like. If you know who they are, and they're working in an organisation, maybe they have a job title. A way you can do it is you can Google their job title and look at their job description, and you'll see how people describe what they do and the language they use to describe what they do. So there's different ways of picking up information and intel and analytics that tells you who your audience is. But also, one of the main things you can do is just try. You can poll them, you can talk to it, try it out with them, have a conversation with them, see what works best, see what they respond better to, and adjust, and then continue doing that.
I'll wait to finish, and because that resonates. That last bit, it resonates with me. So I'll give you my point on that one. Thank you, Adrian. Antonio, go right ahead.
I would say the history. You see, in anything that you're doing, you must understand the history of a company or of an individual. You know where you started from. And when you understand that, then you could go ahead with that prospect or with that individual. The whole idea is really, as Adrian said, is to listen. Listen. Tell me what your wants are, what your needs are, and let me play matchmaker and provide ideas, solutions, and recommendations for you to be able to go and close that sale with your prospect or scale your business.
I love it. And now I'll just change the question, but still the core is staying the same for aka El Papi Chulo, Martin over here. So because he's a solopreneur like me. Now in this case, I want more. I'm not coaching you, but you and I were like, okay, I need to get more clients, but I want more of the same, and that's the same thing I asked the other two gentlemen. I want more of the exact clients. Because I already know what they are, but I don't know what headline I should use. So I already got customers in that industry, but I need to get more of that ideal client. But I don't know the type of headline that I will echo with those new clients. Curious to know, how would you approach it, Martin?
Honestly,
Yeah, won't you lie to me? Lie to me today. Don't be honest. Go ahead.
No, Preston, I know. I think about this like going fishing, and I'm not talking about internet fishing. Talk about
Yeah, you gotta qualify that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you have to try different baits at different times. And then I think you'll get the fish you want. So to me, this social selling is the same thing. It's a constant or consistency, should I say, and change your bait. Pretty much. After a while, you see that nothing is coming, then you have to change it. And that'll bring the big fish that you want. That's the way I see it.
No, I like that. All right. Mind you, no one's answer was wrong. Everyone's answer was right because it makes sense. Everybody's approach is different, right? But what Adrian said last resonated with me. Okay? And what I mean by that is that he said something about talk to them. All right? My approach would have been, I said again, more, meaning they already know existing clients. And this is what I did during COVID, right? COVID hit, right? And it's still there. It still happened. But I'm talking about this time last year, okay? In the beginning of this live stream, I said I specialize working with manufacturing, industrial, individuals, companies in those areas, right? What did I do? I reached out to my manufacturing, industrial, and logistical industries, right? Those people that I could talk, well, okay, I could shoot the shit and talk baseball, right? And I say, hey, what's going on, Peter? How you doing, man? Hey, it's tough, right? It's crazy. Let's talk about the elephant in the room, right? There's some tough times. It is what it is. It's pretty tough, and we're working from home. Are you guys working from home? Mind you, remember, this is my existing customer. So when he saw my number, he's like, oh, this is my dude. You know what I mean? And then guess what? Eventually I said, okay, so Peter, I got to ask you, what are you guys doing? How are you getting through this? He's my guy. Peter told me we're doing this. We're changing shifts. We're staggering that. We're having the break room in the parking lot. People were having their break room in the parking lot. And mind you, some companies still have that, you know. Whatever it was, they told me, boop, 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 boop. Guess what I did? I reached out to new manufacturing, industrial, logistical companies. And now my message potentially speaks to them. Because now I can tell them what Peter told me. I say, I understand, Peter. I'm not sure if you noticed, but I do specialize in your industry, and I work with some other folks in your area, and I sympathize with you, and so much so because I talked to Peter. He's in this company. You might have known him. He shared these are the challenges that they're going through, and this is how they're tweaking their approach. Have you guys considered that? I'm not asking for their business. Did you hear me ask for the sale? So at this point, I'm actually telling them I understand what they're going through, and I actually speak in their language based on what my current customer already said. So that's how I could, I utilize that. So now at that point, I come across a little bit differently. So that's why I said, so just ask your existing customers what they're going through, and chances are you can actually get the headline right from them, and even potentially even quote them. Let's go back to the podcast.
To this LinkedIn community of perhaps we start off doing more outbound and eventually we hope that it just drives inbound. Is that almost the success goal that we're looking for? More inbound inquiries versus the amount of effort that we have to make to do outbound ones?
I think it's a combination. I think, your inbound isn't necessarily always going to be your ideal client versus when you're doing outbound,
Sure.
you're going to be speaking to the people you've handpicked. So I think it's, I get a lot of inbound inquiries, but how many of them are truly kind of my ideal client would be quite a small percentage. So I think it's a combination of both. But I think what was your question again? Sorry, Will, my brain went.
Forget the question, because that's really smart. And nobody's ever said that before, Sam, we're not just playing a numbers game here, are we? Which I think that's what we've traditionally done in the past with how many more emails can we send, how many more calls can we make, and how well can we spam the marketplace. That approach fundamentally just doesn't work on what is a closed platform on LinkedIn that it will thrall you if you try and do that, won't you? It will stop you sending more and more.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, I often hear this thing about numbers game, but it's about the quality of the connections. So even if you just were prospecting 10 people a day, if they were 10 people who were exactly the right job title in the right type of company with the right, with the right kind of industry sector, if they were like perfect for you and then they respond, like you already know before they message you back that they're going to be the perfect fit for what you're trying to sell, versus the inbound side of things where ideally you hope it's going to be an inbound lead from somebody in your target market, but you can't always be sure depending on how many connections you have, etc. So I think it's just this whole, it is a marathon, not a sprint. I think people do think, I'll just start doing some messages on LinkedIn and do a bit of content, and then magically their pipeline's going to start filling. I strongly believe in a combination of the two. So I have a sales manager in my business. Her name's Leanne, and she'll spend her first hour of every day prospecting on LinkedIn and doing her piece of content for the day. So she'll do about 25 outbound reaches a day on LinkedIn, and she'll do her content for the day, etc. But she'll still spend 1 to 3 hours a day picking up the phone, but quite often it's to the people that she's recently connected with on LinkedIn. So I think it's that kind of blended approach and not just doing one thing or the other.
So, all right, guys. So now that's an interesting topic there. Interesting approach. Hey, Jazz, what's going on? Thank you very much for joining us. We're today, if you guys are just joining us right now, we're about a few minutes in. An hour and 7 minutes into the show. And the topic of today is how to build your sales pipeline on LinkedIn. So that's the topic. Now, I wanted to ask, based on what Sam just brought up, just curious to know what is you guys' approach? And I even invited Futures, a young lady that lives out of California, I believe, Oakland, to join the panel, see if she could actually join us so we could actually mix this up a little bit. But I'm just curious to know, what are you guys' approach when you actually do connect with either your ideal client or, like I suggested, maybe the subordinates or the people underneath? What is your approach to after connecting with them? What do you guys do? And then we can start from on the top to bottom right now. I'm looking at Antonio, so go right ahead, Antonio.
In terms of my ideal customer?
Yeah, no. So, okay. So let's say, for instance, I'm your ideal client, and you connect with me, or you connect with either my assistant or maybe two people below me. Either way, you're connecting with people within my organization that you eventually want to work with. What's your initial approach after getting connected?
Well, I keep the conversation quite simple. I'm not bringing up anything that I'm trying to sell or I'm not even trying to use with sales. So, because I would say that, how are you? Glad for two of us to be connected and have a simple conversation. I will approach the client in terms of any products or services that I have available. Maybe after like a couple of times talking with the customer, then maybe I'll approach them, because my whole objective is not necessarily customer, especially on the first time of interacting with that customer. Don't mind it being ideal customer, because you want to build that relationship and show the customer that you're really into them, rather than just trying to sell them.
Okay, alrighty, I like that. And Adrian, what is your approach? You're connecting again. I'm the company, and you're either connected with me directly, or you connected with either my assistant or other people. But I'm the company that you want to work with. So you're starting the process now. What's your initial approach after connecting?
Well, I've been studying this over the last few months, and there's two different approaches you can use. You can try and engage them more on LinkedIn, or your main optimum is to try and get them off that social media the oceans off that social media platform into your organisation. So that could be via a telephone call, via a Zoom call. It could be via you talking to them via any type of medium at all, having a meeting. So the main important thing is to get them back into your kind of system, if that's who you want to be talking to. So you want to really set up a call. You want to get into it. So you don't keep all of that conversation on that LinkedIn. If we're just talking about LinkedIn, get into a meeting. So people that I've been prospecting or having a conversation, they'll send me a message and they're saying that they're very interested in what I do. And the next thing is, okay, let's have a phone call. Let's have a conversation. Maybe I'll have a Zoom chat. I'll show you what we do. But I don't keep it all on Zoom. I take it off Zoom. I don't keep it all on LinkedIn. I take it off LinkedIn onto a platform that I can control.
I like that. That's the key thing. I definitely, that makes sense. I definitely recommend that. So, I like that. And Martin had to step away for a moment. So, he probably had to, put some more moisturizer on his face or something like that. He could take that. He's a tough guy, even though he's trying to look pretty. All right, let me go back to the podcast.
Often when I go in and train sales teams, they think that the LinkedIn piece is just to replace what they're already doing, and it shouldn't be that at all. It should be a real combination effort. But the multiple touch points, if they've seen you recently connect on LinkedIn, then you pick up the phone, then they start seeing you in the news feed. It's all those touch points that are just going to keep you top of mind.
Yeah, I think marketers would use kind of BS terms like be omnipresent across the kind of the viewport of the screen that we all live our lives through for our potential customers. Something important here, and I've never really pondered on this before. Is it strategically valuable to have a blended approach as opposed to just go all in on LinkedIn, for example? Because LinkedIn could just change the game at any moment. They own the rules. Like email's open source. We could email anyone, and as long as we can break through spam filters and things like that, they're going to at least get an inbox. They're going to get the message in some part of an inbox. But LinkedIn could literally just stop salespeople unless you spend £500 a month sending more than 3 messages or making more than 3 requests. So from a strategic standpoint, as we're talking long term here, should we be placing more value on that blended approach just in case things do get messed up within the LinkedIn ecosystem?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting point. I think social selling overall isn't just a LinkedIn thing. Like social selling, I always describe social selling as the art of selling without selling. It's a real art form to really kind of not appear like a salesperson, but you can apply social selling strategies across multiple platforms. The things that you do within the LinkedIn environment to build your brand, to produce content, etc., can be applied across multiple different platforms. So I think you're right. I mean, having all eggs in one basket is never a good thing. And actually being good at the blended approach and picking up the phone and email cadence and all these other things is really important. But I always say to people, go where your target market hangs out. And if that is the LinkedIn platform, then, go there. And yes, you're right. LinkedIn could change the game at any stage, of course. And there, more and more they'll be, especially since Microsoft's acquisition, more and more they'll be looking at how they can, restrict things, I guess. But if you're listening to this and you have Sales Navigator and you're not using it, like you're missing an absolute trick. Your company has literally given you like the Formula One car version of like.
All right, so let me ask you guys on your opinion on that. Sales Navigator. Thumbs up, thumbs down, and then I'll ask a follow-up question on that. So, Antonio, what's your thought on that? Hold on a second. I got Allison. This is the one that she got the miracle ears, and she was able to hear some of the folks echo. So I got Allison is in the house. Allison, thank you very much for joining us, and thank you very much for mixing it up. I appreciate you joining us and giving your insight on the topic. Can you hear me okay? And you're muted on your end, just in case. I want to let you know. I'll unmute you on my end. No, I guess I can't. So, all right, Alice, if you can hear me, go right ahead. If not, I'm going to ask Antonio on your thought on Sales Navigator. So what's your thought on that, Antonio?
Sales Navigator, I never really delved into it to understand about it. I was a sales navigator, but I really have to go into it and understand it much better.
Okay, alrighty. So if I understand you correctly, you haven't used it solely or much to have an opinion. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. Okay. Now, Adrian, do you have any insight on Sales Navigator?
Yeah. Sales Navigator is a tool that you use for your analytics. So you can be much more targeted in your approach if you're using that type of tactic or that type of approach to your audience. You don't need Sales Navigator, but it definitely assists you in your approach.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know that your demographic, the people that you want to reach have a specific title, project manager, could be a gender, could be female, could be an age range, and they have interest in A, B, C, and D. Then why would you use it to target those people who are more likely to fall within your niche?
Yeah.
However, it's not imperative. It's an aid. So you can't just go down one way.
Mm-hmm.
It's an aid to use.
And let me ask you this: can you elaborate on that a little bit more? What do you mean by it's just an aid? Why you feel that way?
Because just because you use a sales navigator doesn't mean that you're going to make a sale. That's like saying. All these people that go out and buy the best computer out there in the world, and they only use email and Excel and Word, and they don't use all the other programs. It's how you use it. You could be using Sales Navigator in the wrong way, or reaching the right people with the wrong message, and you still. So it's about how you use it. It's a targeted approach. It's like your ads.
Good point. I appreciate that. Allison, do you have an opinion on Sales Navigator? Have you used it before? Okay. Oh, go right ahead. Thank you. Repeat that again.
But I'm in for learning. So I'm just leaning.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. What I heard was I heard a cop car in the background, and you said you in from work, so that's fine. I'll keep you in there in the audience. Thank you very much for that. Let me bring back the podcast. Give me one moment.
Propelling your sales pipeline. So if you have no idea what you're doing with Sales Nav and you've just been given a license, then you're missing a major trick.
Coincidentally, now that you're talking about how the effectiveness of LinkedIn Sales Navigator, now it's the F1 kind of tool for salespeople. They're probably sponsoring this episode of the show. There's probably an advert that's coming within the next 5 to 10 minutes of this point in the conversation. So obviously we're on board with Navigator as well. I want to go to something you mentioned with regards to profiles at the top of the show. And I think this we can get real practical here and add a ton of value to the audience. It seems like you mentioned it a bunch of times, you're very focused on identifying our ideal customer persona or the avatar of our customer. Is it fair then to say that we should be building our profile to be the seller that ideal customer persona wants to buy from? Is that a fair way to frame up how our profile should look?
Absolutely. I mean, I use an acronym for the word ideal that helps somebody to really figure out, like, who are they trying to target. So the I stands for the industry. So the demographic, so the description around the type of business. So size of company, headcount, turnover, all of the kind of descriptions around that particular industry sector. The E is the experience. So who in the company do you want? And quite often you might need to prospect kind of 7 to 10 different people in the same organization. So don't just go for one person, go for multiple layers at different levels of the organization. So think about the job titles, and it could be that one job title is called one thing in one company and another, and one in another. So using tools like Boolean search to really use advanced search techniques to find the different job titles can be a really good, useful technique.
All right, guys. So I'm curious to know if you guys are familiar with that, what you just heard, Boolean search. Have any of you guys used that before for searching?
No, I've never used that one. I've definitely done keyword searching though.
Okay. All right, so I can tell you this. I've used it before, and the Boolean search, mind you, this is from the novice. I'm not a pro. But when it pertains to Boolean search, and anyone that's watching this live, let me know if, or even a replay, correct me if I'm wrong. But my opinion and my, I guess what I'm saying about how Boolean search works is, okay, let me give an example. If I'm looking for facilities manager, okay, so I'll put that in quotes, facilities manager, quotes, space, I'll do a plus sign, and I'll do Atlanta in quotes, and something simple as that, and hit enter. Now what it's going to do is only going to show me facility managers that have Atlanta in their profile. So it just narrows that down just like that. Rather than just type in Atlanta space facilities manager, that doesn't really narrow down that search. I mean, so just doing that helps. Mind you, I learned this process years ago, even before I was on LinkedIn. In Boolean search, you could do that even on Google. So in this case, if you're looking for barber, quotes, space, plus the city that you want, and you're only going to get barbers that say that they do business in that area. So that's how that works. Mind you, that's an elementary description of Boolean search. Yeah. So that's what that is. All right, let's go back to that.
There's an article on that on my LinkedIn profile if you're not sure what Boolean search is. And then the A stands for the attributes. So what kind of culture do they have? Are they fast-paced, scale-up companies? Are they more traditional, set in their ways? And finally, the L stands for location. So you've got to really think about your ideal client first. But more importantly than that, for your profile, you really need to think about the pain points of your clients. So your profile should not be about you and your company and your products and services and your features and benefits. It should be very much about who your customer is, who your ideal client is, and how you help that ideal client. Traditionally, most people.
All right, so that's another thing to address, and sometimes some of us don't consider that. Meaning, like going back to what she said earlier, sometimes we have our profile, for that matter, looking like a resume, a CV, like she said earlier, which is fine. That's okay. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I've been guilty of that, and I still need some tweak on our mind. But what she's talking about is like the headline. That's one thing. You know what I mean? How is your headline? Is your headline just saying sales rep company, sales rep territory? Or does your headline say what you do for your client? And then, mind you, the reason I bring that up is that little box that comes up on when people click on your face just to add you randomly. You've seen that before in LinkedIn, and it's just that little box, that rectangular shape. That's where you're going to tell your story right there. And that's the feature or the headline for that matter. Then second, the bio. Mind you, if people that help me supercharge my profile, which one is Mark Gavin and another one is Janine, those two ladies, and I'll tag them on this. They'll say my profile looks leaps and bounds, but still needs some tweaks. But the bio section is where you're gonna tell your story, how you help others, and what are the challenges. You're answering the challenges that your ideal client, has. So when they go to your page, you're basically selling them that on that, and then is a good place to have a call to action. Also at the end. So that's how that works. So when it pertains to like tweaking that, and mind you, if anyone that's watching this, either live or the replay, and needs some advice or guidance on that, I've had three individuals that do that, do profile supercharging for that matter, and two occasions I've had my profile critiqued live on LinkedIn Live, so I can even share that as well if you guys want to see that. So let me get back to before I go back to the podcast. Anyone had any opinions on what I just shared?
I Because in terms of your headline, it is so imperative. In your headline, as a sales professional, don't put like you are a sales manager or or you're a sales rep or something like that. Put exactly what you want to do, and that is the best thing because. And also, you have to put this is the numbers, this is not the algorithm. This is great in terms of reaching more people because, for example, if you say that you help individuals reach from 0% to 5%, the algorithm picks up the numbers and they now tend to reach to more individuals.
Okay. I like that. I gotta push back. I have to. I gotta challenge that theory. How do you feel that the people that potentially is looking for this individual will be doing a search for 5 to 10% or using those specific numbers? That's what I'm curious to know.
No, that's just something I use because I want to be like realistic in the sense of I can take your company from 0% to 5%, and I say that I can take your company from 0% to 2%, which if I don't know your company and the product or services that you sell, it comes like I am lying to you and I don't want to do something like that. I would be, as transparent as possible.
No, I could definitely appreciate that. Okay.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. And I see that. Okay, no worry about that. Let me see, Allison. Thank you very much for that, Adrian. Now, Allison, did you have opinion on what I've shared before I go back to the podcast?
Sorry.
Okay. I'm sorry, I couldn't make out what you said, but I'm going to go back to the podcast. Thank you, Allison.
Even the headline on people's profiles quite often will say business development manager or sales director at, or, salesperson at. And the minute that you've got the word sales on your LinkedIn profile and you're trying to prospect, you're not going to get anywhere. You're never going to get through.
And you guys
so you really need to think about
right
how
now?
do you actually help your ideal client and
Okay,
communicate
perfect.
that on
Thank
your
you,
profile so that when
Antonio.
somebody looks at your profile, they think, oh, how do they know that? It's like they're a fly on the wall. They can really help me with my problems. So the profile, and also it's very keyword searchable, the profile. So you can even come up on Google searches for your main keywords if you get your LinkedIn profile.
That's what you was talking about, Antonio. You nailed it. I was exactly. That's exactly what you're talking about.
Right. So
I learned that from a LinkedIn professional.
Yeah, we all were novice at one point. Now we're on LinkedIn Live, telling folks what we learned. And again, we're not. Well, I can speak for myself. I'm not 100% on everything, but this is an opportunity for me to share what I've learned and then to have a discussion around that. So let me go back to the podcast.
Things to think about on the profile. And a lot of people aren't using that featured section of their profile. They're not using it to really showcase case studies and different things that are going to help the prospect or potential prospect when they hit your profile, find out more about your company and what you do.
Is this becoming more and more important over time? This is a massively loaded question because I assume the answer is yes, but I'll ask you anyway. It could be valuable for the audience. Is this becoming more and more important over time as sales get involved later and later in the buying process? To the point of we want people to look for an expert. Or tell me, am I right here? Is this the ideal scenario for a buying process? Someone sees they have somewhat of a problem. They Google for an expert in that space. Our profile comes at the top of the page. They go through the profile. They see case studies. They see social proof. They see evidence that perhaps we can help them. And then they reach out to us and we perhaps consult and clarify their issues, add a little bit of value. And then over time, they buy from us. Is that what we're trying to engineer here?
That is one way of doing things. Yeah, absolutely. And that is ideally what you ideally want people coming to you. It's so much easier to sell to someone that's already done their homework, looked at your profile, etc. And actually the content that you're putting out there is also helping them to build that know, like, and trust. It might be that you connect with someone today who isn't ready to buy from you. Sure. But social selling really is about staying top of mind and keeping in front of those people so that they know you exist because they've connected with you and they've looked at your profile. They've kind of got an idea of who you are, but they might not be ready today when you prospect them or when they hit your profile to actually buy what you sell. But over time, when they do need what you do, they'll think of you first because you're the person that's stayed top of mind with them, that's built the relationship, etc. And there's lots of things you can do to kind of really raise your profile with those people, but consistent content creation. You know, a lot of salespeople are not using things like voice notes and video notes in the messages, for example. They're just using the traditional, like, I'm just going to spam lots of people.
Let me ask you this now, Adrian. Now, when it pertains to when you connect with someone on LinkedIn, and going back to the earlier topic or idea, so you have someone actually, you connect with them, and that's your ideal person, right? And you guys you're having a casual conversation from time to time. Hey, you know, whatever, blah, 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 right? How do you identify, what is your approach to identifying if they could do business with you today? And, you know, so what is your approach on that? How do you uncover that?
That's me?
Yeah. Did you hear the question? I could ask it again if you did it.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I hear you say Adrian.
No, I'm sorry. I apologize. You know what? I got my dude smiling. So, Adrian, so let me ask you then, and then I'll give Antonio time to come with a better answer. So let me ask you this. Now, you got to step up your game. So now, when you connect with someone today, and for whatever reason, you know, you're not sure exactly if you're gonna what's the questions you ask? You know, how do you go about that?
To find out. So you cut out a little bit, but I've got the question anyway.
Yeah. I'll repeat it again. How do you know when is a good time to how do you uncover if today is a good time to do business?
That'll give you indicators. Sometimes people will tell you that they're here for your business and they're just trying to find out what you want. I think you have to be deliberate about it. If you're going to introduce the fact that you have something that you want to sell to them, a good service or something that can help them, you have to then introduce that conversation to them and let them know that just be honest, really. So I can help with your situation. I've got a number of products which might be of benefit to you. If this can help you, would this be of interest for me to share? And see what they come back with. There's different methods you can do. But I think just being direct and honest, not trying to hide the fact that you've got products and that you're offering something for them. Because they can pick that up themselves, or the person you're talking to.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I want to give a shout out to a few folks that have liked the stream. Kenya Wilson, thank you very much for connecting and saying, hey, I appreciate that. Ramya, Ms. Bala, thank you very much. Bernard, Mr. Musafa, Sabra, my girl, Maria, Carmen, Miss Woods, Mason, Jackie, oh, she rocks, Enrique, Desiree, Gregory, thank you very much for you guys' support. I appreciate that. Thank you very much for liking the content. Now, so let me go ask Antonio. I know he got a good answer now. So go ahead, Antonio. What you connect with them?
I really thought that you said Adrian.
I'm sorry, Antonio. So I got Antonio now. So Antonio, you definitely got a good answer now. So you connected with them. How do you uncover if you could do business today?
I will ask what's going on in the business. You know what challenges you are being faced with. I want to hear from the prospect what is going on. When it is, I hear exactly what is his needs. Then I will know what I can present to him. I will present them beforehand. I want to wait and listen with my ears, and then be able to know if I can work with the suspect.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So it's really 85% listening, and then give it the appropriate feedback. So, for example, let's add another role play.
And we're talking about someone that you already either industry or a sector or vector that you already, that's your ideal vector or sector. So you understand the industry, a little bit more than, rather than someone just off the street. So you understand, their typical challenges. So go, or their process. So go right ahead. I'm just curious to know what's your approach.
Okay. Well, if I understand all the processes and everything, I will be like, all right, I will have to offer them something. And this will be my high value content offer. So I will be like, here what? I can work with you by let's say, healing your organization. From the point where it is at now, build that brand awareness so that you are more marketable in terms of social selling. And when that is established, I'm guaranteed that this will happen. And if within, let's say, 20 days, you're not seeing a performance, you get the money back. So
money back guarantee. Okay.
Money back guarantee.
And mind you, I appreciate that approach, mind you. And some people that might be watching this live or watching a replay, they might be saying, okay, well, that doesn't apply in my industry. And I could, and mind you, it doesn't apply in my industry either. Like, in my case, we're talking about a compactor, a huge piece of equipment, or a trash container that, so a compactor, a typical value of a compactor to procure, for a company like mine, and then we rent it out, you look at anywhere between $40,000 plus, depending on how complicated it is. So obviously, in my case, or my industry, that's not going to be an option. But I can understand depending on different industry, or a regular trash container is about $5,000 plus. Now, no, so yeah, it really applies for different. It's a different approach. I appreciate that. It's the dollar amount for the sale, so I get that. I can definitely understand that. Now, and I mind you, your approach is quite unique, and I appreciate you sharing that. What I found that has worked, let's say after I connect with someone today, like say I connect with Adrian or Antonio, and I'm like, okay, you know what? I know, for instance, I know their company or their industry. And usually in my case, I'm working with big organizations. We're talking about the Nabisco's, Kraft. I'm talking about companies like that. With so these are companies that I could research. So I can understand what's happening either within the company or the industry. So now, second, I know that in my industry everything is contract based. So most contracts are anywhere between 2 to 3 years. Maybe as little as 1, depending if they negotiated that. So we're talking about anywhere between 1 to 3 year contracts. And I know typically organizations in, let's say, a property management or real estate industry, those companies are doing their budgets around August and September. So now, given that I know all that now, I could actually come up to them and say, hey, I understand. Let's say if it was a Kraft company like big as Kraft, I say, hey, I understand that you guys just hired, or you're opening a new facility in this area. I know it's going to be quite challenging, get that hired up and getting the services up and running. I've worked with other companies in manufacturing in your area to ensure that you have a smooth start. So those are the things that I will say and say, what can we, because I understand these are all fact and they know that. Chances are that they might be more inclined to take my call. The other thing is that if I know something is cyclical, such as contracts or budgets, like I mentioned earlier, if I know the time of the season they do that, I can say, hey, it's budget season, right? I know we hate that, don't we? But I want to make your job easier. Let's schedule a call so we can make sure that you could hit or come under budget next year. How's that sound?
Great.
You know, so, you know, mind you, I understand that these are the challenges that they have, and they don't want to spend hours and hours, which they can do it. But if they can minimize how much time they apply in a specific area, then I'm their best friend. So just consider that. Let me go back to the podcast right here. Oh, before I do that, do anyone had an opinion on what I just shared? Okay, all right, good enough.
But even using things like voice notes and video messages, once you've connected with someone, can really help you stand out from the crowd. So there's lots of different things that you can do to really kind of move through that buying process. But yeah, to a certain extent, it starts with the profile. They've got to know who you are. And yes, they might be ready to buy at that point, but the chances of an inbound lead happening straight away is unlikely. It's going to be more that they know who you are, they connect with you, look at your profile, and over time, you're going to nurture that relationship. And there's lots of ways to do that.
Sure. Okay, so we'll go on to consistency, then content, then messages. When you say consistency, is this an hour every morning like it is with your team, or does this vary depending on multiple factors? What is a good benchmark for the consistency of the time and effort that we've got to put into building a pipeline on LinkedIn before how much time and effort we've got to put in each day to not guarantee, but to nudge us in the right direction with all of this?
So I typically, if you're in a pure sales role and you're a kind of a business developer, like minimum 30 minutes a day, ideally an hour a day, but minimum 30 minutes. And in that 30 minutes, I would be doing my prospecting and my outreach. I'd be doing some follow-up on the people that had recently connected. So sending like I have message 1 and message 2, and typically get a 3 to 8% response rate from that structure. So message 1, message 2. And I would also be creating a piece of content as well in that time, and probably doing some engagement on the newsfeed with potential prospects as well. So once you're connected, if you do have Sales Navigator, you'd be able to do that intentional engagement from the home feed, from the newsfeed. So if you're saving out accounts into Sales Navigator, those are going to be ideal clients. So doing some intentional engagement, liking, commenting, getting visible on other people's posts, etc. So just 3 very simple things every day. But if you do those things every day, if you did that consistently for 90 days straight, you'd start to see some considerable results from just doing those things.
All right, guys. So now, and ladies, do you guys have, you let me know if you have an approach, and if so, what that approach is, or if you don't have an approach, what do you do? I mean, when I mean an approach, something that you do consistently every single day. That's what I mean by an approach. And if you do, share that with me. And if you don't, let me know what you do when it pertains to how do you use LinkedIn. So Adrian from the top, and then we go to Antonio.
So again, it depends on the audience that you're looking at and what you're doing it yourself. But for myself, I use minimal interaction. I get a lot of people contact me from Clubhouse. They come to me on LinkedIn, and I definitely use voice messages or video messages, as you know. That's what I do. And the reason why I do that is because when they've contacted me from Clubhouse, the connection that they've made is actually with my voice. So it's familiar for them to hear my voice and then make that connection, because they haven't had that outside. And then, if I'm really honest, I'm actually moving to the point in my business where I'm going to outsource some of my interactions on social media, because I'm doing 2 jobs at the same time. And it makes more sense to me to get somebody who's a professional to do it, or somebody who has the time and a passion to do it, and I guide them rather than me do something else.
Yeah. So basically, what you're saying is like a virtual assistant.
Yeah. Okay. Exactly right.
Okay, good enough. Yeah. You know what? That sounds like an interesting topic right there. Either to start talking about. If you haven't done already, I would recommend that. Like, probably put a video out pretty quickly, just like what you just said. Hey, I'm working 2 jobs. I'm pretty busy. And folks here on LinkedIn, you guys use LinkedIn more than I do. Just curious to know, do you have a recommendation on a virtual assistant? If so, let me know who. So just curious. That's a good approach. That's pretty neat. If anything, like what Sam was suggesting, you could probably have them do some of that work for you. So
without doubt.
Yeah,
outsource the work that you don't need to do, and it's probably cheaper for them to employ somebody to do it better than you, quicker than you, than you to struggle with the technology that you're not really good with, or for you to do your core business, which could be coaching or selling or whatever your core business is. Your core business isn't video content or Instagram content or all of those things. Give that to somebody else to do.
No, I like
what you're good at.
No, it's perfect. And then before I go into Antonio, I'll say that resonates with me so much so that the other day, it was my sister-in-law was in town, not in town. She was at our house, and we just got one of these not touch sensitive, but these touchless stuff through our entire home. We got like touchless soap dispensers, and we've had touchless garbage containers, and most recently I acquired one of those touchless kitchen sink. So she came up and asked me, "So Marcello, did you install it yourself?" I said, "Nah, nah." Even though I could have, because I read the instructions, it seemed like you could. I said, "No, that's the kind of stuff I leave it up to the pros."
Absolutely.
So so Antonio, so what's your thought on that, on what we were just talking about? What's your philosophy?
My philosophy is more engaging. Engaging and personal content, and giving a personal response to whatever they post. Because yes, you will go through LinkedIn and you will see different posts and such. Liking someone who to me is not enough. Engaging in their post and actually giving them a great response, it shows that you genuinely really consider what it is that they post and it resonates with you.
Okay.
And also, in terms of when a LinkedIn user decided to send me a connection request, I will send a personalized voice note, thanking them, with the connection and hoping that, both of us content could resonate with each other.
Mm-hmm. No, I like that. No, I like that. Yeah, I sometimes, excuse me, I found sometimes a lot of the stuff that we do after connecting with folks, and I think Adrian probably experienced it himself, is that you find yourself, telling folks what you do and how you do it and what you're about. So rather than saying that, months ago, I created a post that just highlights what I do. And it just lists the different hashtags that is associated with. And so when the opportunity presents itself, then I'll say, hey, I'll tag you on this post, right? And this post describes everything that I do, and I ask them to follow the hashtags. Now, the benefit to me and the person is twofold, right? The benefit is that it shows that social proof, because I did this months ago. So there's something that's already been there. Second, they engage on that post, and that helps with the algorithm.
That's right.
And then lastly, the other people that I've invited and tagged on that post days, weeks, and months ago, guess what? In the notification is going to come up that Adrian's reacted to my comment.
Mm-hmm.
You see, so that comes up in their feed. And so now how that works is, and this is my phrase, I organically bump into them, because now they engage in that post is going to come up in their notifications, and it's going to be almost like a way for me to say yoo-hoo without saying yoo-hoo, because I'm coming up in their notifications indirectly. Not necessarily that I tagged them on something, but they're seeing, oh, well, Antonio just reacted to that post or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So that's how that works. So, All right, good. Let me go back to the podcast.
The measurement I always get salespeople to look at is their SSI score and their social selling index. So, ideally, if you're in sales, you should have an SSI score kind of 75 to 85 would be kind of the number to be aiming for. I'm sure you probably talk about the SSI score a lot on these podcasts, but if you're not sure what it is, just go to linkedin.com/sales/SSI, and it will give you a score out of 100 as to how well you're doing at this thing called social selling. And 75 to 85, if you're in that kind of ballpark as a salesperson, you're doing a pretty good job.
I don't know what mine is. I'm going to go on it right now, but I doubt it is very high whatsoever. So I'm going to. You're going to see me, if you're watching this on video, you're going to see me moving around as I'm kind of like dodging the camera to try and get to the screen in the background as I pull it up. Right.
All right, so I'm going to show folks mine. I'm going to bring up, let me share the screen here. I'm going to bring up my SSI score here. So this is it right here. I just brought it up. So mine is 68. Now, I don't have... and I'll put a link to that website. So whenever you guys and you watching this on the live, you can actually click on it and it'll take you right to your, as long as you're logged into LinkedIn, it's going to take you right to this page. But it shows you right here exactly the different sections here. It shows you that I'm ranked number one in the industries that I do what I do. And then you see out of this is why I rank 17% in my network. And then these are the other areas. She's going to talk about this in a moment. She's going to talk about, and this is pretty compelling. This section here talks about establishing your personal brand. So you see right there, I'm at 22%. She's going to talk about where you need to be. The other section here is finding the right people. So 16%. It shows that's where I'm at, that rank. She's going to talk about where you need to be. Basically, what it is that based on what I do, I've identified and I'm connecting with the right people 16% of the time. And then you see here, engage with insights. So basically, content that you're creating and then building relationships. So it just speaks to how well I'm building relationships. Mind you, this is LinkedIn's algorithm. So that's what this is their perception of me. Now, the reason why I'm bringing that up is that affects how strong you come up in the stream or how you come up. You know what I mean? So that's what makes, when it comes out to that, determines exactly how well your content works. So that's the thing. So yeah, I just put that link there and you guys can click on it. If you're watching live, in the comments, let me know what's your percent. And what I'm talking about right here is right here, this number here, 68 out of 100. Let me know what your number is in the live feed. And then if you're watching a replay, let me know, put at Marcello and let me know what number that is. So definitely interested in that. Okay, I see Adrian. You put in a private chat, so I'll let folks. Yeah, so I got but that's cool. But at least, it shows where you're at. That's the start. So let's go back to what she says now. Okay, about that.
So can I just go to remind me again of the URL, Sam?
Hold on, I may bring that up. And mind you, see, this is ultimately the information I'm sharing now is going to allow you to utilize LinkedIn more effectively as a tool rather than a social media platform. I really want you to understand what I just said. Using LinkedIn as a tool rather than a social media platform. Now, what I mean by that is that social media platforms like LinkedIn, Instagram, those two, let me use those, and I mean Instagram and Facebook. Those are, I feel they're more casual, passive, relax, leisure, so you could, you do whatever and you don't really care how things happen, LinkedIn has to be utilized effectively because the time that you're using it, you want to make sure that you get the return on the investment. So that's the key thing. And that's why, unfortunately, when the results are not matching up to what you expect, then a lot of us just end up stop using it the way it should be used. And then you wonder why when you hear people, oh my gosh, I'm getting all my business from LinkedIn. And you're like, how in the world are you doing it? I haven't been able to do it. well, their SSI score might be higher. So in doing so, their content is being delivered to their ideal client. So that might play a huge factor. So let me bring this up here.
Also, it depends on which
Yeah, hold on a
industry
second.
you're in.
So Allison, that's the question that I'm asking. Okay. And mind you, you could put it in the comments so I can understand what you mean by that. That's the question that you're asking. Okay, yep. So you really want to know how you could use LinkedIn more effectively. And mind you, what I recommend you to do, connect with Sam. She could definitely give you some insights on that. I'll definitely recommend you to do that. But we're going to continue watching this podcast, and she's going to share some other jaw-dropping knowledge on how to use it more as a tool.
So linkedin.com/sales/SSI stands for Social Selling Index, and make sure it's all lowercase. So linkedin.com/sales/SSI. And there'll be one big number in a circle.
Oh, it's loading. Oh, it's telling me to log in. I don't think I've got my credentials on here. Okay, I'll put it in the show notes. That was a disappointment right there. I was expecting a number of 37, and you to rinse me, Sam. Give me.
Hey, Will, and the guy on the left on the screen, him and I are connected on LinkedIn. He said, he plans to watch this tomorrow. So, Will, let me know in the comments. Do @MarcelloArsenal and let me know what your score is, because you haven't shared it yet.
Good telling off, and tell me how to fix it. So I will go on.
You're going to put it in the show notes. There's 4 different areas that LinkedIn looks at. So you get basically 25 points for each section. The first section is called Establish Your Professional Brand. So that's all to do with your profile and its effectiveness, and the amount of content and the quality of content and consistency of content that you're putting out there. So if you want to be seen as an expert in your field, and you want those inbound leads coming, and you want to really position yourself in your personal brand, you really want to be kind of aiming at 24 and a half points on that particular score. The next one is called Find the Right People.
Hold on, I got to play that back for a moment. Just make sure I heard what she said.
And tell me how to fix it. So I will go on.
You're going to put it in the show notes. There's 4 different areas that LinkedIn looks at. So you get basically 25 points for each section. The first section is called Establish Your Professional Brand. So that's all to do with your profile and its effectiveness, and the amount of content and the quality of content and consistency of content that you're putting out there. So if you want to be seen as an expert in your field, and you want those inbound leads coming, and you want to really position yourself in your personal brand, you really want to be kind of aiming at 24 and a half points on that particular score. The next one is called Find the Right People. So that one's all to do with prospecting and you building your network proactively. So if you're not prospecting daily, don't expect that score to be very high. If you're just accepting inbound connection requests, then don't expect it to be very high. You've then got the next one called Engage with Insights. Now, this one comes from a combination of things. If you have Sales Navigator, things like using LinkedIn to research companies, looking at insights, etc. Engagement is going to be part of that. Group activity is going to be part of that. So there's a multiple of different things. And the final score, which is usually the highest for most people, is called building relationships, and that's how well you're building trust with other people in the platform. So go have a look and check out your score if you've never checked it out. But ideally, you want to be aiming at 75 to 85. If you don't have Navigator, don't expect to get above 80. But certainly, if you've got Sales Navigator and you're in sales, you want to be aiming at 80 plus. If you're sitting at kind of 50, 60, less than 50, again, those 3 things I've given you to do on a daily basis are going to help you move the needle, probably from where you are at the minute by about 20, 30 points, if you just did that consistently for 90 days.
Sure. I will.
See, now that's the key thing, the commitment level. You know what I mean? I know that we have our own lives, and it's hard to really commit to this. So working with Sam or people like Sam is ideal if this is something you want to do, meaning you have to come up with a strategy. So you, like she said it earlier, you guys can play it back. She said contacting 10 people in the morning or selecting maybe about half an hour in your morning to do these tasks and do that consistently. And in doing so, she said, for the next 90 days, you should see a jump in your percentage. And then what happens is that then the effort that you're putting through is actually you're hitting closer to the dot. Like, you know, many of us that are watching this here have played the game of darts, and you understand what we're looking at. You got the board in front of you, and you got a dart that you have to throw. Every time you're throwing that dart, you're trying to get it in the center. So ultimately what she's saying is that doing these behaviors, the things that she's suggesting day in and day out, is going to help you to get closer to the bullseye. So that's the key thing. So what do you think about what you just heard, Adrian?
So I agree with what she's saying. A tip that I would say for people is this, that you need to work out what time you've got to do this. People that I know that do this effectively, that are working a number of things and doing what they do is they batch their content. So they set out a day to all of their videos and their posts, and then they incrementally over that week or that month release that. So it's not like you're trying to have to record video every day. Yeah,
I know what you mean. I think about services like Buffer or Hootsuite. These are different services that people use to schedule a lot of stuff. And yeah, that's also
when you create it. You don't need to just create one post a day. It might be easier for you to take out a couple hours, create 5, 6, 7 posts.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to release them all at the same time.
Yeah, I agree.
Just schedule that.
Yeah, mind you, and when you say that, I'm thinking about the stuff that you're talking about. What it sounds like to me is that you're creating evergreen content, and people that may not be familiar with that term, evergreen content. What that means is that it's type of content that it doesn't, obviously it's not timely, it's not time sensitive, so it resonates with your ideal client all the time. So, given that said, that's the kind of content that you could actually apply. What I typically do, what I do for my 9 to 5, which is I'm a waste stream analyst. And a waste stream analyst, people in my industry, and they're providing recycling services. The phrase that you hear often in our industry is reduce, reuse, recycle. So essentially, you know, rather than doing a lot of stuff, you could reduce your effort. You could reuse old content, right? And you could actually recycle it. So for example, like what I mentioned earlier, that post that I use, and the first headline that I have in that post says, "Hello, new connections." And then the next line down says, "Follow the hashtags that stay in the loop." And then at that point, those 2 lines is what you see above the fold, because I have a photograph of me with my thumbs up, right? And then you have to click see more. So at that point, it details everything I do, all the different LinkedIn lives and social stuff that I do. And then at the end, it shows what it describes what I do as my 9 to 5. Now, remember I said I did that post months ago. However, that's what I recycle. I'll take that same photograph, the same text, copy, paste, create a new post, and post it maybe on a Monday or Tuesday, whatever, random, maybe once every 3 weeks, once every 2 weeks, whatever. So that could potentially reach out to some of my new connections, rather than me saying, hey, or sending someone, something in their inbox, which is, I recommend everyone to do that. But it's a very fine line how to approach it without, coming across and pushing people away. So definitely recommend that. And thank you very much for saying that, Adrian.
In the show notes, I imagine I'll be low on a couple of these because I've not added anyone to LinkedIn for months, if not years. I don't know the last person I added on LinkedIn. I get a lot of inbound people adding me, but I guess that doesn't add to the that score. And Sam, let me ask you this. Is this LinkedIn's way of saying, hey, Sam, Will, tens of thousands of people listening to this, this is what we want you to do. And if you do these things, we will promote you on the platform and you will have success. Is this the hack that we all seem to be searching for?
There is a direct link between how high your SSI score is and the visibility of your posts and your content. So yes, it's not like a direct thing, but you'll certainly, like, LinkedIn favors people that are very active and have a high social selling score. And there's now even recent research that came out in December. 4,500 posts were looked at and compared to SSI scores, and there was 125% more visibility on content for people that were having a very high SSI score. So SSI score does directly impact many of the things that LinkedIn wants you to do. So use that as your benchmark, and really focus on those core areas so that you can build up your SSI. I always say to people that, you've got to have visibility first, then you've got to have credibility. And only when you've got visibility and credibility will you even get opportunities on LinkedIn. So V plus C equals O. Visibility plus credibility equals opportunity. So if you're not visible, if you're not prospecting, if you're not putting out content yourself, original content as a salesperson, then you're missing a trick. And if you're not doing the right things to build your credibility with potential prospects, again, you're not going to get business from the platform.
So personally now, selfishly for me, is the value in me going and, I don't want to say gaming this score, but going and adding people who I do want to connect with? And then is the value in me using LinkedIn Navigator and more purposefully, and perhaps adding companies that I want to do business with, or maybe just adding a bunch of companies that I want to follow and going through those? Would there be value to the reach of my posts by, again, not kind of gaming the numbers, but not really gaming it?
I mean, it's not really gaming the numbers. It's just understanding the things you should be doing to do social selling the right way. I mean, the great thing about that score is it actually tells you the 4 things that you need to focus on. So you need to establish your brand. You need to find the right people and connect with and build your network. You need to establish trust, and you need to actually engage with the platform. So
see, I like what she just said. Now, think about this. A lot of you folks that are watching this right now live or on the live feed, on the replay, many of you guys will either are connected or have seen posts from other folks that are social media gurus. I'm just paraphrasing, and you know what that means to you. Either if you follow them or somehow or another, it happens to be in your feed because people in your network they're liking what they have to say. So it's going to be in your feed regardless, right? These are the things, those 4 things that Sam just highlighted. Those are the 4 things that these individuals, when you reach out to them and say, hey, I need some help, chances are, I'm not saying that this is exactly what they're doing, but there's a good chance that they're following this playbook. And then they're coaching you on this playbook on what you could have done yourself. So they're going to say to you, they're going to ask you, okay, Adrian, have you established your personal brand? And, whatever your answer is, and let's say if the answer is yes, then the obvious question is going to be, what is your personal brand? Say hello. If the answer is no, then guess what? How do you want people to perceive your brand? And then they're going to coach you on how to craft it and then, work that. Then the next thing they're most likely going to ask you is that, are you having issues finding the right people? And I'm looking right here. I'm looking at the circle right here. Yeah. Okay. Who's your ideal client? It says right here. And then the next thing they can probably be going to ask you is that, are you engaging? Is your content engaging with insights? What do you mean? Meaning, okay, you say you want to find the right people. All right, we already identified who your right people are, right? Because we already covered that. Now, is the content that you're putting out speaking to them? Let's look at it. Boom. And then lastly, are you building relationships? Basically, are you engaging in the comments? Are you being giving of yourself? Are you helping? Are you forwarding posts? Are you whatever it is? But either way, are you active on the platform? You don't have to be there hours, but are you giving back? You know what I mean? So then ultimately, if you're giving back, then chances are those people are gonna reciprocate. So that's how you build relationships. So are you doing that? Those are the things that you're doing. So that's what's going to help for your score. So Yeah, that's the key thing. So let me go back to the podcast.
Because ultimately are the 4 things that LinkedIn's looking for everybody to do on the platform. So yes, there would be value in you doing all of those things. And many salespeople are not. They just don't know what they're doing with the platform at all. They have no idea how to be a real social seller. They think that the marketing department is the one responsible for content. Whereas if they took ownership of their own content and their own personal brand and actually went out there and started to be a real, thought leader in their space, you'd be surprised.
All right, so Karen Smith is asking, I'm not sure I understand the SSI. Well, this would happen, Karen. I'm sorry. I know that you came a little bit later, and no blame to you because we've been chatting here for about 2 hours. You can watch the replay, maybe about 15, 20 minutes before that. Sam explains what the SSI is. Mind you, if you visit a website on the link that's there, it'll tell you what your score is, so you could click on it as long as you're logged into LinkedIn, and it'll show it and then post it here on in the comments. And her advice is guiding you how to increase your SSI if that's your goal. You know what I mean? If you want to reach, and in this case, the topic of today's show is building your pipeline, building your sales pipeline on LinkedIn. So the advice that she's given is based on that. Let me see here. I have okay. So Allison is she shared in the comments in our private chat that this is helpful, and she says she don't know much about the SSI, the LinkedIn SSI. Well, maybe I guess if same thing, you might have stepped away, Allison, but she shared it earlier. What the SSI is and how that works, and how are you doing? Yeah, I see that too. In the morning, I saw that there. Okay, so let me go back to the show. Hold on a second. Let me go back to the podcast.
Much visibility they'll get. So it is not really a hack. It's just I use it as a guide. But I know for sure that the people that have an SSI score in the 80s are the ones that are doing business on LinkedIn.
Okay, I see what you're saying. I see, Allison. You didn't know it before tonight. Thank you, Allison.
Perfect. I love that. That is relatively clear cut for the audience, Sales Nation. That's what we should be aiming for, and I will probably be aiming for that towards that myself. Okay, so with regards to content, and then we'll wrap up with messaging. With content, what do we need to post to fulfill your formula, Sam, of adding that layer of credibility?
So there's many different things you could do, and I actually teach 14 different content themes and ideas. But I think people tend to get really stuck when it comes to content because they just look at the screen and go, what can I possibly post about? What would be interesting? So the ones that I generally find are good for lead generation are educational type posts, so where you're sharing your expertise or sharing tips, advice, etc. That can be a really good source of leads. Wins and successes for your clients or for you. So for example, you might not be able to talk about a sales meeting that you have coming up or a recent project that you won, but you could still talk about that success without naming the client, for example. So I always say, look at your diary 7 days forward and look at your diary 7 days back and think, what happened last week that I could post about that's a win or a success? And what I've got coming up that I'm looking forward to that I could post about. So these kind of documentary style posts are quite useful, especially for salespeople, because they're the easy.
What do you think about that, Adrian? Isn't that interesting, that approach? Like she said, look at your calendar and see what you did last week, last month, you know what I mean? Or even upcoming. That's an interesting thing. It's almost like you could, let's say Monday, you don't have to probably do every single day, but I like that approach. I might implement that. Meaning I look at my calendar and I can see, okay, hey guys, good morning. I want to wish you guys having a great week. I hope you guys have a great week, and I just curious to know what you guys got planned for the upcoming week. I'm gonna pull back the curtain and let you know what I got going on. I'm gonna be working with a large manufacturing company out of Lawrenceville, Georgia. They just established a new facility there, and they're planning to opening up soon. They're manufacturing, but what they manufacture are engines for go-karts. And as I'm just making it up right now as we speak, so what you're doing is you're actually sharing with your network, but at the same time is also speaking to your ideal client that this is who you're working with. So it's also providing some level of social proof. And then what she said also about your past week, celebrating some wins. Or even better yet, I would add to what she just said. What about if it was an objection that you might have heard, right? Or a concern, right? Let's say, for instance, in my case, right? Let me give you an example, and then I'll open it up to you guys, so then it probably get you thinking. In my case, what's quite common in my industry is trash containers can be overloaded, right? And when that happens, that's a no-no. Now, mainly because imagine this as a trash container, right? What you're paying for is for the trash inside the container, not outside. And that applies even for residents. So if you have anything that's sticking out of that trash container, that's extra trash. So there's fees associated with that. So given that said, either a prospect or an existing customer might ask me, hey, I keep having extra trash. Do you have any advice how I could address it? So there's different things that I could advise them on. And in doing so, I could actually share that in that video. Hey, I'm not sure if many of you guys having this issue, but last week I met with a client of mine out of Midtown Atlanta, and they have chronic issues with overloaded containers. And then I share with you what advice I gave to them, because this could be something that's going to be cyclical, and it's going to happen again with other clients. So you're giving advice to them. So curious, Adrian, what would you? I guess now, given that said, can you look back last week and then maybe even next week? What would this upcoming week? This week is almost over, right? Basically, but I guess for the next week, if you can, what would you have any wins or anything that you could talk about
from LinkedIn or
no, just personally? Business? Yeah, just like personally. Okay. Yeah, just curious. Yeah, we could talk about it right now briefly. Yeah, go ahead.
So I've had a number of clients come to me, especially from some of the engagement I'm making on Clubhouse. And a lot of them will come to me for business. Just straight up, not hard sales, just normal conversation. Me helping them with whatever their requirements are, especially in their coaching, which has been good. But at the same time, I'm juggling a full-time job, which is very hectic. Lots of deadlines, changing deadlines, lots of requirements. A number of teams that I'm managing, even as of today, just lots and lots of projects which I've got on the go, which I've got to juggle. And this has been a very, very busy week. But
stop right there. I think you nailed it. You got right there. If you play this back right now at 2 hours and 17 minutes, what you just shared, you could talk about it in your upcoming video. You can say, hey, I just want to let you know, I might be new to many of you guys here on LinkedIn. We might have been connected, but not sure. I want to let you know what I do and how what I do on LinkedIn, and who's my ideal client. But let me let you know what I've been doing. I've been engaging with folks on Clubhouse. I've been club hopping. That's what they call it nowadays.
Sorry.
Yeah, I've been club hopping for a while, and quite frankly, is a lot of you guys that are here on LinkedIn that are connected with me. You found me on Clubhouse, so thank you very much for that. But it's a gift and a curse, because now I'm managing multiple teams. I'm working on deadlines that are just crazy. And these are the things that I've managed. These are the things that I'm doing now to address these challenges. So right there, you could talk about, that's the past. So then now going forward, you could say, okay, you know what? Now going forward, these are the things I'm working on. Or you could work about, I'm actually pretty excited on a project that I'm working next month, and you could talk about that without actually talking about specifics.
That project, yeah. Agreed.
Yeah.
And I think as well, I was going to speak to one point.
You go ahead.
About what you're saying. If you look through your camera on your phone, I bet you've got a lot of evidence that you could share that you didn't remember. I shared a couple posts only in last week ago, and it was from about 3-4 years ago. I just found some pictures on my phone. Just sent it out there, just shared it and said, this is something I was doing. And within the day, it had how many thousand views and a few comments on it. And I'm thinking, this is just a picture. Why would anybody be that much interested in it. Certainly some people do.
Yeah. And now, Jazz earlier commented that he liked the voice notes. She mentioned earlier that you could use voice notes or use your notes. Like here it is. I think what he said.
That's right.
Yeah, like you could use. That's what Jazz said.
Voice video.
Yeah, the voice notes is not a bad idea. Yeah, you could do that. What I've used, and because I have many of you that watch this know that I'm a big gadget person, so I love technology. So I got a lot of devices, and it's all across different platforms, Android, you name it, right? So I use stuff that I could use cross platform. So I use something called Google Keep, which basically is a note software. So as long as I'm logged into Google Keep on my Google account on any device, Google Keep is synchronizes across all platforms. So I can have it. So if I have a thought about what I want to say, I have a section that says, a Clubhouse section. If I got something for LinkedIn, boom, I put my thoughts there. And same thing like what you said about photographs. If I see a scenario that I can see how it could be cyclical, I'll capture it. Or sometimes I work with a huge company, so when they finish their setup, I'll do a video like, hey, I want to welcome X company, yada, 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 yeah. And I'll record a video. Like I have one that I recorded like 3 months ago. I haven't posted yet. That I can say, hey, welcome this company to the Republic's family. So I could post that any single time. But I recorded it when I was on the site. It's because I could see that this is something I could do down the road. But I like what Sam suggested. So let me see what else she has to say.
Thing to post about. What you're up to, you might not think is that much interest to anybody else, but if you wrote a post that said, really excited, looking forward to speaking to a large manufacturing company next week. They're bringing us in to talk about pain point 1, pain point 2, pain point 3. These are their biggest challenges, and I'm really looking forward to meeting with their key decision makers, blah, blah, blah. So you don't necessarily have to say who it is or what you're doing with them, but by just bringing in some of those pain points into your content and talking about what you're up to, someone else might see that and go, hang a second, we've got those problems and those pain points. We should maybe talk to this person. So educational, documentary can be really, really good ones for salespeople to do stuff with. I think it's about a variety of different types of posts. So there are actually 12 different types of posts you could do on LinkedIn. So not only have you got to think about the ideas and the themes for your posts, but you could do a poll. You could do maybe you've got events coming up and you're not using the events feature of LinkedIn. You could do a text-only post, a document post, a video post, photographs. Like there's so many different types of posts out there now that are available. LinkedIn Stories has recently launched. There's a newsletter feature that's phenomenal. You could literally use so many different tools. But I think for salespeople, it's just about making it easy for them.
Hey, I'm curious if anybody's watching this here, or not if anybody, the folks that are watching this live or watching the replay, let me know if you're watching the live. Let me know if you're team live or team replay. And also let me know what part of the world you're watching us as well. And be sure to share this with your tribe. Wondering who has newsletter. I don't have access to newsletter yet. And if you have access to newsletter, let me know. And if so, what I need to do to gain access. I'm not sure because that'd be great because now you could essentially, rather than, create, you're going to create posts regardless, but you could actually have a place that you can speak to them directly, meaning the people that subscribe to your newsletter. So that omits the whole SSI factor. Because if they're already subscribed to your newsletter, whatever you post in your newsletter, essentially they're gonna get it. So have you come across that, Adrian, the newsletter?
No, I haven't. I'm going to investigate it.
Yeah, please do. And look at in your, I believe. Let me remember where you go. You go into My Network. So when you click on that in your LinkedIn profile, that's where you normally will receive an invitation to join someone's newsletter. So that's the same place that you see a connection request and also a request to attend an event. Also an opportunity to join a page. I'm looking at some of them that I have here. And what else? Yeah, page. I see now newsletter. So yeah, so newsletter weekly. So yeah, so that's something new. And I think that the people that have possibly a higher SSI, maybe LinkedIn has come to them and say, okay, you know what? Let me reward you. You know, you got a good SSI. Here you go, access to a newsletter. So that might be the case. Let me see here. I see PK Group is in the house all the way from Florida. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate that. And I got Carolyn, my lady from Colorado. That's always been a word I always have issues pronouncing. And now she says she's talking about also information about the overloaded trash receptacles. We see these here all the time. Yeah, that's nationwide. And companies, waste companies, there's fees associated with this overloaded because, like I said before, the trash that you pay for, that you're disposing for, is in that container. So that usually is two things is happening. Either you need a larger container or you need to increase your service level. Those are the two things you need to possibly explore to address. And Allison is saying in the comments, in the private comments, Team Live from Trinidad and Tobago. So I'm sorry, I had to let folks know.
Massive, huh?
Yeah, massive. Yeah, exactly. Folks are not seeing that in the main feed, so I had to let folks know that. All right, let's go back to the podcast.
And quick, because what you don't want to do is spend hours and hours thinking about posts. If you want to see an example of a good salesperson that's doing great content, follow Leanne Saxton, who's my sales manager. She's purely business development, pure sales, but she posts every single day and she posts to our target market. So she's really a good example to follow of somebody that's just doing social selling the right way. She's booking probably 6 to 12 corporate meetings a week with our ideal client, and she's doing it through inbound inquiries and prospecting every day.
I really appreciate the numbers you shared there. A lot of people that I speak to on this subject are, our team's killing it, we're doing this and this, but you're trying to push them on what are the results from it, and they don't share them. So that screams alarm bells to me. So that just shows your expertise and your team's expertise there, Sam. So I appreciate that. Okay, so that's consistency, profile, content, now messages. So let's make this, it might be a slightly large assumption, but a large assumption that everything's going well. Our SSI score is 81. We've hit that criteria. We know that if we showed it to Sam, she'd be happy. When does outbound messaging to potential customers come into this? And is there a cadence for all this? Should we add them? Should we comment on their posts, then add value to them and then send a message? Does it matter if they're a good fit? Should we reach out to them immediately without a totally salesy message, but a value adding message? How do we manage this outreach process?
Yeah, that is a big question. And a lot of people are doing it really badly and really wrong. So I always recommend that you should only prospect at your second degree level of connections, which is basically the people who are one step away from you. So I don't recommend prospecting at third degree or beyond. It's just too far out of your network. So I always recommend building your first degree network and only prospecting one step away from you. That way you've got some mutual connections, you've got some common ground, you know some of the same people, etc. I have a two-step message process.
Hey, I'm curious, and that's the common way that I always start a sentence. I'm curious, but I am curious. Have you guys, and I guess I have to ask you, Adrian, do you have a philosophy when it pertains to, or an approach when it pertains to second degree or third degree? When you're connecting with folks, have you ever say, oh, well, that person is 3 degrees away, I'm not gonna really fool with it, or okay, that's a 2 degree, that makes sense. Have you ever considered that?
Never practiced it. If it's somebody that I want to connect with and I can, I will do. And the same thing for them. If they want to connect with them, I think there's power in all of that. If they say that you're only 6 or 7 degrees away from anybody in the world, why would you cut that off?
No, I feel the same way as well. And Allison says she just do 2 degrees. And mind you, when you do in 2 degrees, it's usually easier to click on it and the approval chance is higher. Before listening to what she had to say, I did actually sought after 3 degrees, mainly because I felt that if that person is a 3 degree away, I'm going to be connecting to potentially a network that I don't have any access to. So, and if they're within my wheelhouse, or they're an ideal client, or someone that I actually want to in my network, if I connect with them and they're 3 degrees away, chances are the rest of their network might be 3 degrees away. So, which I believe that's the case. That's the reason why they're 3 degrees away. I could reach out to a whole new audience potentially. So that was my view on that. But she had an interesting take on that. So that's the reason why I whenever I saw a 3rd degree, I was more attracted to connect with them rather than a 2 degree. Because if it's a 2 degree, chances are I'm already connected with someone that that I might be connected. All right. If I connect with you, chances are your connections, I'm already connected with them. A few of them already as it is. So I don't value your connection as much as if he was a 3rd degree, because those folks don't know me. Yeah. That's my approval.
It doesn't mean I don't want to know you, though. But I
repeat that again.
Understand where you're coming from. It's a warmer market.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Exactly.
Message 1, message 2, and that process done the right way with the right messages can generate typically in the first message, we'll typically get 50% of people that we invite saying, yes, I'll connect with you. 50% is a decent amount. So if you're prospecting 100 people, 50 of them would say, yes, I'll connect. That's where you should be at.
Hey, Carolyn, be sure to watch the replay. And Carolyn, I'm sure that you come across people in your network that find this conversation valuable. Please share it with them, or tag them. Tag them in the comments so they could definitely watch it as well. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're doing it right. 50 to 60%. But as an average, 50% should be a good benchmark of, I invited 100 people and 50% of them said, yes, I'll connect with you. The next step after that is what I call message 2, very creative. Message 2. And message 2, again, if you think back to what we talked about with the profile, it shouldn't be about you and your products and your services and how you can help. It should be all about the customer and the main pain points that you solve for that customer. So the second message should be very aimed at why they should even have a conversation with you, and have a killer question in it that actually gets them into a conversation. This isn't about getting a lead straight away. This is about starting a real conversation with somebody that has got a real problem. So for example, I'll give you an example of the messages that we use. So if we're prospecting a CRO or a sales director or somebody that's got responsibility for a sales team, it might say something like, typically sales leaders come to me frustrated because they've invested heavily in LinkedIn Sales Navigator, yet their sales team aren't generating enough business from the LinkedIn platform. Some are know that they should be getting more business from the platform, but just don't know what to do. And a few are under pressure because they're missing sales targets. So there are a few pain points that I know that those types of people have. Out of interest, what percentage of your sales team's business is coming from LinkedIn? That's the question. Now, I actually don't care what the answer to the question is, because as soon as they come back and say 0%, none, no idea, 10% could be better, I actually don't care what the answer is, because I know I can help them. But now they're in a conversation with me. So using a really solid set of pain points with a really killer question that doesn't end in the answer no, by the way, is a good way to start the conversation. I know as soon as somebody responds that they've resonated with one of the pain points and they're now able to start a sales conversation. At that point, I can take it offline and I'm in a meeting. But that's ultimately that's the structure that I use, and it's a very effective way of doing things. But again, it's, everybody has their different views on how you should do it.
That's similar to what you said, Adrian. You was talking about earlier about taking it offline or taking it to Zoom. That's what you were saying earlier. So after you connect with them, you'll do that. So that's right in line.
I personally don't recommend using InMails. I'm a big non-InMail type person, just because if you receive an InMail, it's a sales pitch.
Yep.
So I don't recommend using InMails. LinkedIn will probably kill me for saying that. Sorry, LinkedIn. But I actually recommend connecting and using a good structured sequence of messages. I would always make it personal, the first invite. Like if I can find something in their profile, maybe we went to the same university, maybe we have some stuff in common, maybe we're from the same area. So always look at their profile and find something that you can resonate with. And then once you've sent the connection request, start doing some engagement with their content, etc. So that's my kind of theory around it. I know probably have lots of people on that say different things, but I know that we'll always get a 3 to 8% response rate from that second message. And that's enough if you're doing enough volume of outbound to secure the right amount of meetings that we need anyway. So, but sure. I have an agency that does this for clients. So I have a team of 8, and they prospect every day, day in, day out. Just that's all they do on behalf of our clients. And all of our clients are sitting between 5 and 15% response rate based on that message sequence. So, so think about how you could come up with something similar for your business.
Okay. I'm not sure if you caught that. I gotta play that back. Look what she just said about the response rate.
Let's say different things, but I know that we'll always get a 3 to 8% response rate from that second message, and that's enough if you're doing enough volume of outbound to secure the right amount of meetings that we need anyway. So, but sure. I have an agency that does this for clients. So I have a team of 8. And they prospect every day, day in, day out. Just that's all they do on behalf of our clients. And all of our clients are sitting between 5 and 15% response rate based on that message sequence. So, so think about how you could come up with something similar for your business.
Okay, that makes total sense.
You got to understand, the average response rate sometimes on an email or a cold outreach is anywhere from 1 to 2%.
Right.
She's saying that 5 to 15%. That's ridiculous. That's almost as close as I would say I'm like 800% better. Mind you, but you're putting in the work. You see what I'm saying?
Putting in the work. She's actually making it warm sale by the interactions that you're doing with their posts, by looking at their profile and doing all of these things. So it's not necessarily just a cold call. They are at least socially familiar with you.
Mm-hmm. We have a few more minutes and then we'll wrap up.
And I'm totally on board. There's non-pushy. There's nothing weird about it. And if it gets good results, then clearly the effectiveness has been proven there. Couple of perhaps quick-fire questions here from what you just said, Sam, to wrap up the show. If we are getting less than a 50% connection rate, is there a point where LinkedIn starts to punish us?
Not to my knowledge. But it just means that your first message needs some work.
Sure. And is there a maximum amount of messages that you can send per day as well, connection requests?
I don't recommend doing more than 25 in a day, personally, to stay under LinkedIn's radar. So I wouldn't, and it's too many to manage anyway. Like if you've got 25 people outbound and you're getting 50% of them say yes, you've still got to manage that follow-up. So it becomes way too much to do if you're trying to keep everything on top of things. So I would say no more than 25, but between 10 and 25, minimum 10 a day. If you're in sales, minimum 10.
Cool. That's a good target to go at. Okay. InMail, if you had to bet whether you think it will or you won't or it won't, do you think it's going to disappear or do you think it's going to become more important over time? Because clearly you have to pay to get access to it and LinkedIn want that cash.
I don't think it's going to disappear because it's one of LinkedIn's, that's how they sell, the idea of Navigator. I actually did a poll on my LinkedIn feed. It's up at the moment saying, what do you do with InMail? I've got I don't know how many views. It's about 12,000 views on it at the minute. But I asked the question, what do you do with InMails? I'm doing some research for my new book, Linked Outbound. And I decided to do a poll on LinkedIn about what do people do with InMails. And I think option 1 was delete it. Option 2 was it's a sales pitch, delete it. One of them was I respond only if it's any good. And there were a few different options. And the one that's coming out the clear winner at the moment is that they will respond only if it's any good.
Sure.
And that means that you've got to, even whether you're using a normal connection method or whether you're using InMail, if your message is not good and doesn't speak to your prospect, they're either going to delete it, ignore it, whatever. But I don't think they're going to disappear because LinkedIn uses that as a way to sell to enterprise clients. but I just don't feel they work at all. And I've never found a company, and I work with a lot of big organizations, I've never found one that's making emails work. So if you're out there and you're making email work, let me know. But I tend to recommend just using the normal connection method and a good structured sequence. That will generally work. But I don't see emails disappearing at all. I think that LinkedIn uses that as a way to say, well, this is why you should buy Sales Navigator. And I love Sales Navigator. It's amazing. But the problem is that LinkedIn trains salespeople how to use it when they buy licenses, but they don't train them in social selling. They train them in press this button, press that button, and this is how you save a lead, because they're a software company and they train on their product. What they don't train you is, how do I be a great content creator as a salesperson? How do I build my personal brand as a salesperson? How do I prospect effectively and write great messages that people actually want to respond to? That they don't train on any of that stuff, and they should, but they don't.
They don't. And this is something that, yeah, of course. And
I love that. I love that response from Carolyn. Carolyn said, one thing I've learned is not to ever approach anyone with dollar signs in your eyes. Always meet and greet with true commitment and passion and compassion. It's sad that we have to even highlight that, because it's so rare that you, not so rare, but it's rare that you see that. Mind you, often enough people manage to disguise that, but eventually that individual true colors comes through, and then you realize, okay, and I mean by that is that, it's a, for instance, someone say, hey, Marcello, I like what you're doing. We should do this and we should do that. Okay, great. And then they want you to help them out, but then next thing you know, 2-3 weeks, maybe a couple of months later, where's the guy? Where is she? No follow up. No. What happened? Oh, they got what they wanted. And mind you, it's happened to me numerous times. So I use, yeah. Go ahead, Adrian.
I was gonna say, I think you have to have a level of respect for yourself and your service. And what you're offering, and what you can do for free, and what you can't do for free, and be happy with that.
Yeah, I like that. So you basically you create your own boundaries, and that's what you're working from. So that's pretty cool. I can respect that. Okay, we're about to wrap this up right here.
Clearly, they should hire you. There's people in the space that they should be hiring, and they should be doubling down on LinkedIn Learning and just forcing that down people's throats. I've talked about this at length with Victor Antonio on another show that we do called This Week in Sales, of software companies should be buying training companies or consulting companies and implementing some of this. But that's a story for another time. Final one on this before we wrap up the show, Sam. How do you manage all of this? So if you're sending, say, 15, 20, 25 messages a day, how do you know when to send the follow-up, the second message? Because it's somewhat, I'm hesitant to say simple, but it's a easy to understand process, right? Message 1, message 2. How do you know when to send message 2? Because within 3 days, I've lost track of it all.
So I kind of have daily habits, weekly habits, and monthly habits for salespeople. So your daily habit is just your prospecting, your content, your engagement. Weekly habit would be to go back over the new connections and send out your second message. So I wouldn't be doing that every day. I'd be doing like once or twice a week. Go in. Who have I got that's new, who I've not sent a second message to? And once a month, I would be list building. So if you have Navigator, which I think most of the people listeners probably would do, but like once a month, just build yourself a really good, solid list of 200 to 400 people in your exact target market that you've literally got ready to go for the month ahead. So Leanne in my team, she'll literally, first day of the month, she'll do all her list.
I'm watching you over there, Adrian. I can see the smoke coming out of your ears. Like, okay, all righty. I see this.
I like what you're saying. I like what you're saying, because it's deliberate. And salespeople have to sell. You have to prospect, but you have to sell. You have to have your value proposition in front of your market on a regular basis. It doesn't just attract to you all the time. It doesn't fall out of the sky. So you've got to do some kind of deliberate action. And I like what you're saying about having weekly, monthly, or incremental kind of activities that you do.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually taking notes.
I've been watching you taking notes throughout the entire conversation. Yeah.
and get 400 people in there that she knows are right, and then all she's got to do every
Was that? Yeah, you got your notes there. And I think, where's mine over here? I got, yeah. Listen, you and I think the same. Look at this here. I may bring it up here. I may go back into the full. Yeah, look, see, I got mine right here. Yeah, and my wife here. Yeah, so I keep mine over here, and I stay with a note as well. Even though I'm big on technology, I still keep a note so I can just write things down. Sometimes it's easier to do that. Carolyn, thank you very much. I'm also glad that we're connected, and thank you very much for appreciating my kind words. And I mean it. My statement is quite sincere. I'm glad that we're connected, and I only wish more folks were like you, and just it'd just be so much better. So thank you very much for being connected with me, Carolyn.
Okay, so just log in, send out her next 25 messages, jump into, and it literally is like 30 seconds a prospect. It doesn't take a long time. I wouldn't recommend sending a second message or a follow-up message like straight away. It just comes across as too desperate. So I would be doing a second message probably within 24, 48 hours, but just not jumping down their throat as soon as they're connected with you. And it's just about, Navigator makes it much easier to kind of manage everything and see where you're at with everything. If you're using the free version, slightly more difficult. But just, I think it is just about getting that system and those habits in place. And once you've got those habits in place, it just becomes kind of a process that you just work into your daily week. So it is difficult to manage, and it's an admin heavy. It's pretty boring, like sending out messages. But if you do it the right way and you're getting responses, it's not wasted time. It's really valuable time. And you never know, your next best customer could be the next message that you send.
Perfect. Okay, one final question from me. It's something that I ask everyone that comes on the show, Sam, and that is, if you could go back in time and speak to your younger self, what would be the one piece of advice you'd give her to help her become better at selling?
Wow. That is an interesting question. I think that I work with a sales coach, and I think if I'd have done that earlier, I probably would be, investing in myself, I think is the thing I'm trying to say here. So if I'd have invested in my own learning and my own development much earlier, having podcasts like yours is amazing, just really spend that time in investing in your own personal development, reading books, getting really clued up on selling and prospecting and all the, conversion, all of those things that as a salesperson you really need to do. I don't think I did that early enough in the sales. So I think if I were to answer that question, I'd go back in time and I'd say start now. Like 20 years ago, I should have started reading, learning, listening to all these kind of things. So thank you for your podcast and everything that you do for the sales community, because if people aren't like upskilling on themselves, then they're missing a trick.
I love this, and I will double down on this in that podcasts are great, but most people don't make notes when they're listening to podcasts. The show notes this episode will go through everything that we've said, and it'll be a blog post in its own right, and there'll be value there as well. But blog posts, I find it like the entry point. If the audience, Sales Nation, if you're listening to this and you've had value from this, you should read Sam's book and then upcoming book, which we'll touch on in a second. And then you should perhaps hire Sam, go through some training and different things. You need to suss out what the weaknesses is. And this coming from a podcaster, podcasts aren't always enough to solve these problems for you. Whether you need a one-on-one coach is perhaps debatable, depending on the subject matter that you're trying to learn and develop. But at least you need some kind of book, substantial training or video training or something like that. So I'll double down on that fact. Coming from someone who makes a living podcasting as well as doing training, going that extra mile makes a massive difference. And with that, Sam, tell us about the current book. And then I don't know if you want to share about it yet. I know it's exciting, and I don't know if you've unraveled it in front of the wider audience, but if you want to.
So guys, I'll tell you this. We could wrap things up at this point. I want to take a moment to thank Will Barron for being so gracious and kind in sharing the actual file that he uploaded to YouTube. He shared it directly to me, and that's why it wasn't junky and didn't have all that ad stuff all around. It looked very professional. So thank you very much for helping and supporting Cocktails with Chello. Will, I appreciate that. Now, I want to ask you, Adrian, what's your takeaway from the last 2 hours and 48 minutes? Because I'm sure, you had no idea what you was going to commit to, but now you know. It's like, okay, next time I see a cocktail with Chello, and if it's less than an hour, I'm like, okay, you know what? This might have been a super short one.
Yeah. So, takeaway. I think that the deliberateness that was mentioned before. I like the thing about the SSI score, and I think about having just a deliberate strategy for your LinkedIn navigation. It just kind of underlines to me how important it is, and what we need to do to maintain and increase the correct type of audience on it.
Mm-hmm. No, I echo that, because you got to think about this. Think about some of these millennials and different folks that you see that, they are making a whole lot of money. Now, it really depends on, if that's what you want to do. If you want to do that, then great. But if you don't want to do that, you can still use LinkedIn more effectively. So then you can actually have, your quality of life could be a little bit better. Let's say that much. Meaning that you don't have to exert as much effort. You don't have to be a multimillionaire, but you could have a great lifestyle, but you don't have to put the same effort that you would have done before. And then at that point, you have more disposable time to spend with family, friends, and maybe even following your passion. Who knows? So there's so many things that
exactly right.
Yeah, right.
And that's one of my passions.
Which one is?
I want to be able to spend more time with my family and my children. And so I need to make sure that I utilize the time that I do use, make that effective, so it can free me up to do other things.
Yeah, and mind you, once you find success following this formula, I can see you, saying, "Hey, teaching others," because that's what ultimately is going to happen. So, so I'll tell you this much. After watching this, I saw this a few days ago. I was sitting outside, having a cigar, and doing some work in Salesforce. And I was listening to this conversation, and I was flabbergasted that I didn't know about this.
It's hooked, isn't it?
Yeah. I was watching, and what she was sharing was so stunning. I was like, hold on a second. This is something that I have to share with my network. So I reached out to Will and said, hey, I'm planning to do it, because I've done some other shows of his, and I've done the same thing, just like this, a commentary. Like, this show only lasted maybe, I don't know, what was it? 45 minutes long. So I've added 2 hours of commentary. but it's, I love this approach, because you're able to have an organic conversation. And my wife asks me this often. She'll like today, she asked me at the dinner table. She said, what's tonight's topic? And I told her, well, the topic was about how to build your sales pipeline using LinkedIn. And I told her, yeah, I'm going to be utilizing a podcast to ignite the conversation. And then, but in between there, I'll pause it to get feedback and get their insights of the participant, either if they're going to be in a panel or in the comment section. So, and she's like, oh, okay, I like that. Yeah. And mind you, this is, and if you're on Facebook, Adrian, this is called, Facebook, I think, coined the phrase, is called watch party. Now, that is, yeah, exactly. So essentially, mind you, this is a different take of the watch party, because I'm actually stopping it and we're talking during the live feed. But the watch party that I think that Facebook does is that they play the video. There's no interruption. However, you could actually, there's like a comment section, and then you're commenting as you're watching the video and everybody's together. But that's why I consider this is my version of a watch party, because we're watching it together. I'm sharing it. I'm introducing you to this podcast. Then you can subscribe to it. And then you could always subscribe to their channel on YouTube. And then you can enrich your life as well. So that's why I just want to share some of the stuff that I come across that I find valuable, and it speaks to me. So, Adrian, I can't thank you enough. I know that I know for a fact you had no idea what you was going to be getting yourself into, how long you was hanging in there. But I appreciate you, your resilience, and thank you very much for your comments. I can't thank you enough for even looking for the headphone with the cord just to make sure that your audio was fine, because this was one of the rare occasions that my guest audio was challenging in the beginning, which I'm sure it affected some of the viewership, because like, I can't, but either way, I appreciate you hanging in there. Now, is there anything outside of LinkedIn? Oh, my pleasure. Outside of LinkedIn, where else can someone connect with you? And if today they look at you and they say, based on what he said and the industry that he's in, I'd like to do business with him. So outside of LinkedIn, how can they get connected with you? And if you're more than welcome to share an email, telephone number, what have you.
Sure. So the best place for people to get me is probably on LinkedIn, and a direct message, and that's a bet on. Or you can get me on Adrian at helpmybid.com. That's the email address. Or just look for me for Adrian Betton on Clubhouse, and you'll hear me speaking quite frequently. And that's where I share a lot of information and value as much as I can. And I'm here to help people give an insight into the buying process. It's for salespeople because you're the ones that deal with us the most. I want to make sure that you make as many sales as possible.
Yeah, and that's exactly
surprised how people haven't done that.
Yeah, and that cascades to what we talked about offline on we probably have to have to continue this conversation offline for us to either list anywhere between 3, maybe 5 topics. And when I say 3, you're like, well, that's not enough. Well, chances are 3 topics is enough to cover, because look, we spent just shy of 3 hours talking about how to build your pipeline. So I could definitely stretch something. So definitely we could probably anywhere between 3 to 5 challenges that salespeople should consider when working with procurement industries.
Absolutely
right. Or things that you know it personally, what you're dealing with on a regular basis. So I'm not asking you to sit down today, Adrian, and write them down, but as you go throughout your day in the next few days, weeks, just write down a few, and then when you're ready, you're like, okay, I got the list. Then we could talk, and we could schedule a time to have a live and have that discussion that we talked about before.
That's fine.
Thank you, Adrian. Listen, Adrian, you have I can't thank you enough for hanging out with me here, and me actually get my my outro here. Give me 1 second. I'm actually trying to find that here. I should have done this sooner. Now, are you planning to host any what's this thing called again? Clubhouse rooms in the future?
Yes, I've got a couple of rooms at the moment. Some in the sales club if anybody's looking for, and they'll be like ask the buyer and things like that.
Okay.
And I've got another room which I do, which is around personal coaching.
Oh.
Which is called how to get paid more than your boss.
Well, do me a favor. When you get a chance, when you go back into this feed, I'm gonna tag you and I'm gonna update the description to have you in the description because you was one of the guests here. Look at this. Carolyn said, "Hi, Adrian. I would love to connect with you." So be sure to connect when you go back. Yes, you could probably, because what I'll do, Carolyn, I'll update the description of this event, and I'll put Adrian's name as one of the guests on the show. So I'll definitely do that. Yeah, and also do me a favor and put the links to the Clubhouse rooms that you're hosting, so people could actually connect with you there as well. Okay.
No problem at all. I really appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure.
Anybody wants to catch me, I'm on LinkedIn, Adrian Betton.
That's awesome. Hey, Adrian, thank you very much for your time. You have a wonderful day and evening for that matter. Morning, right?
It's morning now. I've got a few hours before I have to wake the boys up for school.
Yikes. Okay, man, I can't thank you enough. Thank you, sir. You take care. We'll talk soon.
No problem at all.
Bye-bye.
You have a good one. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
When I don't even know how to love. Why do you love me? Why do you love
You tell me, hang tight, it's all just temporary. Don't fight, none of it's in our hands. Lose sight of what isn't necessary. Oh